Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Altered Weekly Online League, Season 2, Wednesday Weekly number 5. I am Jalix, at the Tabletop Tinker on all the things, joined today by the illustrious Blue. Blue, how you doing tonight?
Doing swell, it's just another day. Beautiful for everyone. They get to see our faces and they get to watch them altered, so can't complain.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got, so far, it looks like 71 participants signed up for tonight, really putting a high note, excuse me, 73 now. A lot of folks in this Wednesday weekly. Great to see these numbers starting to rival some of the Monday European time zone ones. So keep those numbers up. If you're watching in the chat and you'd rather be playing, go ahead and hit that link in the description of this stream. You can have about 3 minutes to sign up before registration closes, and we kick off round one right away. Blue, we've been seeing some interesting tech over the last couple of weeks as things have developed. Some of the heroes that were showing at the beginning of this season, mostly on Beyond the Gates, have started to develop some new tech. What are the heroes in particular that you're most excited to see tonight? And are you expecting to see further developments in how they're built?
Well, there are the heroes that everyone is planning to see. I'm thinking Sigismar and I'm thinking of Faunus. Their techs with Trial by Frost have increased, not considerably, but a solid amount, even with Ozma being suspended, not banned, for the time being. But there are some other characters, characters that are being used, heroes that are being used that show a little bit of promise. We've seen Hyper K on Tasia, not even using Trial by Frost cards. We've seen some other people bring in some interesting setups. One hero in particular that I think has some promise, especially with some variations of Trial by Frost cards. Potentially down the line is Finn and Crowbar. A lot of card return there available now. You're actually able to use the cards in your reserve more than once rather than just getting hit by the one hero ability that on the resupply. So a lot of options out there, but at the end of the day, Sigismar is looking awfully good. I think there's statistics going around in the Discord that a lot of people use Sigismar, and we still see a fairly high conversion rate in the top side of things. So you can never go wrong there.
Definitely. I feel like Sigismar and Kojo were the ones that felt the most changed by just key pieces coming in, as you said, with losing the glue of Ozma, and then you see someone like Kojo coming through, receiving the glue of the adventurer that it draws a card on the way out of the battlefield. That's just like an exciting time. I think that Hyper K is actually once again in this event, looking to maybe get the three-peat undefeated tonight.
Yeah, they definitely could extend, at least get another victory. There's a lot of good other players out there, plenty of EU players showing up. Although I don't believe we've seen an EU player take the Wednesday side of things since the start of season 2 of AWOL. So America is trying to keep it to ourselves here on the Wednesday side with the timeline, but you never know. Those EU folks can try to take it, be really sleepy, and get the win. But a lot of good players out there, a lot of folks from the Altered Aces. Didn't see really the many people from the Exalt side of things. I know we'll have Team Agite available. I'm just excited to see what all these top players are going to be able to do and who's going to take it all.
Absolutely. Well, it looks like registration has closed and we have paired round one. So we'll be heading into a game here in just a moment. Are there any particular players that you want to take a look at? Anyone you suspect of having a cool deck, or you just want to watch some team on team action?
Well, there's going to be a lot of names that we recognize, I'm sure, at this point. But you know what? Let's go ahead and start off strong or maybe not so strong with table five. Have Shingao and Cole Robbie.
All right. Here to bully the darling of Altered Corner. We are headed into this match right now.
We may as well get it away out of the way for the first round, and then we can focus on some other stuffs later on. But who knows? Maybe he's surprising us. He's currently 0 and 6 for today going into this tournament, so he is technically due.
All right. Well, let's see if we can shake off the round one jitters and get ready to go here. Gonna head on down to the match as soon as we get this loaded. All right. Oh, has oh, okay. I was worried there that Cole had embraced the darkness and moved over to Akesha here, but it looks like we're going to be starting off with Old Reliable.
Yep, he's definitely setting up for a Tasia here, and he's gonna go ahead and not prevent the is going to prevent the advance by the Kesha player by just not letting the Baba Yaga leave the expedition and making it go to sleep. So interesting play here. We'll get the ramp from Tiny Jin. I do not know what deck list Cole is using, if the ramp is for the purpose of the Hydra or if it's just to get some more mana, but only time will tell.
Yep. But rocking out of the gate here into an immediate ramp, and we'll see how important mana is at this particular time. Um, Very rare to see someone skip an orb this early, but Cole might be running the gambit here. We'll have to see what exactly is going on.
Really liked all the cards in hand at this point
There
and
we
was just
go.
taking the ramp as part of it, so makes sense. We will see the
Mhm.
after you though from the Akesha, so I'll be curious to see what the plan is here. Ysmir heroes known for setting up and getting as many cards in hand as possible. Let's see how they're gonna be able to react to that unique.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at this unique here. We've got our Mowgli, uh, 3 from hand, 2 from reserve, 410 when it leaves the expedition. If it has one or more boosts, we're going to be drawing a card. So nice little double draw here if it goes through on both sides. See a pass.
Nothing left here for Cole Robbie to do, and it will get hit by that off you go. So responding with some type of interactable of their own is the Akesha, preventing an advance from the Tasia player and getting that Baba Yaga advance to where it was going to be in the first day, you know? This time around, just had to use a few extra cards to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Akesha discarding from reserve here. Off you go is headed out. Not a huge loss. We're going to see plenty of card advantage or 2 for 1s coming out of this Akesha deck as she sort of ramps into or heads into a more controlling board state, more than likely.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see if this is one of those Catagear stall decks, have no fun for the other person setups for Akesha. Uh, Either way, I think Akesha isn't a horrible Ysmir hero. I think it's probably on the bottom end as far as popularity at the moment. I've seen a lot of Lindaway decks pop up lately, and of course, Afanis is as popular as ever. So I'll be curious to see if people can build up on the Akesha deck list that maybe not include some variation of the Catagear and Celebration Day and just letting your opponent not play.
Yeah, I'd need to double check the results, but I believe it was either Monday or this past Wednesday that a Lindaway deck hit the very top tables, and the list looked fantastic. Even with the lack of the unique moonlight jellyfishes, it was able to put up some strong results. So, yeah, it's weird to hear Akesha being, possibly the third most popular hero right now for Izmir, but as cards come in and strategies adapt, that might be something we see going forward with some other characters too. I am
Yeah,
personally here for Rin supremacy.
there we go. We did see that Saskia come out in the rare version for the Tasia player. Don't see it very often as far as the new Trial by Frost cards are concerned, allowing for boosts to go on a character that is in the forest terrain. We did get that change in the new rulings where we're calling it terrain nowadays. But any number of characters will get two boosts if they're in terrain. Only had one at that time, so it got a little bit of a boost, but it also got hit by the off you go. So we ended up with just the one and one at the end of the day.
Yeah, definitely a pretty powerful card and not one we see all the time. The rare slots in Tasia just fill up so fast, but I have seen people running Saskia at both rarities now, so pretty cool for that one. And my personal favorite coming out here, a Sleepy Yeti. Yeti is going to gain a sleep and give boosts while it's on the field. So as we are looking at Kesha just kind of biding their time here, picking up some additional cards. I'm curious to see how long this Yeti will manage to hang out on the field and hopefully score a progression on the following turn.
Yeah, this is the kohlrabi special. I've seen him use it a few different times, likes the Yeti. If all goes to plan, it will be staying out there multiple turns and not just this one day and the following day after following his sleep. We'll see if he's able to do that, depending on if he's gonna sleep it again or if there's gonna be some variation of that. But I have seen him use it once or twice at this point and likes to use the additional boosts that it can provide to his other characters. So we'll have to see if the Kesha is going to allow it to stay out, or if we may even see a extra expensive off you go play.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in a bind, it's definitely always available there in the reserve. But yeah, I agree with you. Yeti is definitely like a sweet pick, and you can certainly build your strategy to optimize around that card. And even if you don't, you get a discounted Ozolith for your Luna deck, which no, I don't think you're going to be too sad about with all the anchoring that's available.
We
All
do
right,
see
so
that Flamel come out. We don't see that very often as far as Ysmir cards anymore, but obviously not too bad when you're able to pick up that off you go and be able to play it again for 2 mana. So can't complain there, especially when you're running into a Tasia that likes to anchor and also sleep characters at this point.
yeah, just a nice sizable body, and as we see here, that's essentially giving a 2 cost discount in some ways to speak of this off you go. And obviously, with this Yeti being out, um, we could have gone for the removal here, but in this case, choosing to just no harm, no foul on the companion side expedition. So um, fine with both players moving forward here.
Yep, we will see them prioritizing advancing and staying ahead on the tumult. We have Kohlrabi on the Tasia, getting that sneezer shroom out that would have been protected by the floral tint had a removal try to knock it out because it was anchored. But at this point, either character could be hit by that off you go, despite the fact that we have that floral tint set up, unless something anchors it right away. But we also will see the Icebound Taiga come out. These new
Yeah,
landmark permanent sites are fun.
being able to give a 5/5/5 anchored is pretty incredible. But it seemed like early on in the development of this meta, a lot of folks had just sort of written off Icebound Taiga, saying, the juice isn't really worth the squeeze here. Trying to make sure that we're in these expeditions that have the forest trait, we're going to be fighting to either fill our deck with cards that are adding the forest trait to our current expedition, or waiting to play these at the perfect time. So Icebound Taiga is very powerful, but players were trying to warp their deck around it a little too much and maybe not having the greatest success. Here we're seeing Kohlrabi throw that away and say, I'm going to make 10 power worth of dragon and have it stick around for as long as we can.
Yeah, we do end up seeing that off you go come out. The Akesha player not wanting to see how many things can get boosted up because of that Yeti. And we will see a
Mm,
unique Isatok coming out that basically just has the regular Isatok effect and different stats and a different support ability. So one of those rare uniques that doesn't have some type of condition around the effect and just messes around with the stats and a support ability instead.
yeah. Um, I'm blanking right now, but remind me, is regular Isatok a 6 from hand, 6 from reserve, or is it always a 5?
For a common, for a rare, it is a 5.
Oh, okay.
So it's slightly different in that aspect, and then the stats are a little bit off-centered, and
Hmm.
then, like I mentioned, the support ability is typically a draw card opposed to giving a character fleeting. So I mean, it's not too bad in the sense of you get that Isatok can often surprise folks. I think I see it more often on Akesha players than I do anywhere else, especially if you are trying to stall a little bit or counter your opponent, which they were able to do in this scenario with Kohlrabi stacking over on the hero side. But for the time being, they still do have that Sneezer Shroom out after it was slept by themselves.
Yeah, Kohlrabi doing an admirable job keeping up with total card advantage here, despite a lot of these removal just causing headaches whenever you're playing a character that relies on getting this anchor value to really uh, stay in the game. But right now, things are looking pretty good. We just got our second counter on the Icebound Taiga, which means our next character in the forest region will be able to put out this dragon. Um, Cole might have to work a little bit to play around this dragon coming out and then immediately eating a piece of removal. And in fact, we're seeing here that Cole is in forest on both sides due to this Persephone. So any character played here will bring out the dragon, which might get immediately swept up by this off you go in reserve, or potentially even another answer in hand.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he plays. He could play the Yeti from the reserve, and he ends up doing that, and this will allow the dragon to get a boost as well. So I think he did the correct play in playing it to the companion side. So now the dragon won't be can be targeted by the off you go, but it will only take away the anchored token. And if they decide to use the off you go on one of the two characters in the companion zone, he should still be able to advance in forest depending on what the Akesha has in hand for the remaining 2 mana. We do know that is the last off you go that they have available to them at this point, so it'll be interesting to see how they end up playing this out.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Cole's play is coming up very nicely here, as we see, as you mentioned, the floral tent has actually been sticking around for a couple turns now. But when we need it the most, it is here, and it is very likely going to be the reason that we progress with this dragon shade this turn.
Yep, so imagine at this point that Kesha is trying to figure out if they do have another play based off of what they have in hand. They do still have plenty of mana. I don't think Cole on the Tasia will be able to play anything past that. Usually, the only other one cost plays you could have is potentially another Beauty Sleep or a Spindle Harvester. And we do see two of the Beauty Sleeps already having been played. So the likelihood of a third showing up at this point is not going to happen. And we do see the pass. So we'll see what the last 5 mana comes from. And looks like it's just going to be a drawathon with two magical training plays and then using 3 costs potentially here to try to advance, but, just gonna throw the
Hmm,
Flamel out, and
interesting.
I assume this is just because they were planning on getting rid of it anyway at the end of the day and trying to keep the other 2 cards, but who knows?
Flamel not quite serving blocking duty due to that Persephone changing the forest to the forest region for that expedition. Um, I was almost wondering if that Flamel was going to be discarded for its support ability to get a little discount on this off you go and allow us to clear the Dragon Shade's anchor there.
Definitely
Uh,
could have done that, and for the proposition of not leaving that dragon shade out, it seemed a little bit of a better option, but maybe they're trying to preserve that off you go, at least for the time being, since it is their last one with 2 in the discard pile, and they might have a card return, potentially here in
yeah,
hand that they wanna pick up that off you go with.
yeah, that would make a lot of sense to sort of get as much value out of this off you go as you can. We see a pretty interesting floral tent resupplying into a second floral tent. So there's a very good chance Cole is going to be quite impervious to his anchored characters getting removed here for a couple turns, depending on how he decides to deploy these.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he has anything set up as far as anchoring that dragon again, or if he just has the typical Sneezer Shroom, Spindle Harvester plays, maybe a Dracana play. But for the time being, we're just going to wait it out and we'll actually get a Katagaran Alchemist and Common coming out. Don't often see those anymore, at least in Yizmir, but again, I haven't seen an Akesha play for quite some time.
Yeah, that's definitely felt like one of those cards that was like 37 through 39 of just a powerful filler that also acts as a pseudo off you go on the back end. Beyond the Gates meta, very unsurprising to find that in Akesha and also in Afanis decks. But nowadays, with a little bit more access to interesting pieces that can provide a bit more for your expeditions, um, yeah, this is a bit of an odd but welcome sight.
Yeah, so we did see Cole stack on the hero side, even with that Isatok in the reserve. So I'd be curious to see if he had a plan for that, knowing that they could just throw the Isatok on the companion side and prevent an advance. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case, and potentially just forgot that he could do that and prevent the advance altogether on the hero side. This will allow the Akesha to get some type of advance on the tumult and get a lead again, but we do see a unique Lyra Thespian.
Yeah, so we've got if you control two or more boosted characters, I gain a boost. That's an ability from hand. Ability from anywhere is if you control three or more characters, we're going to give anchored. And in fact, we are giving that anchored to our Dragon Shade once again. So even though the Isatok did prevent that progression this turn, we are still going to have yet another turn with this Dragon Shade around and just continually asking our Kesha player to find some way to recycle this off you go or finally spend it. Um, Cole is definitely bringing out all the spicy stops with this faction shifted Eros as well. Um, Eros from in mana says you can immediately play a character for three less and it gains anchored. So, notably, a way to give anchored to characters that typically aren't going to see it, ones that are particularly of high cost.
Yeah, he's going to have to start worrying at this point though, because the Akesha is just one advance away from small step territory. I have to imagine they're running at least one in their deck. If you're playing Ysmir, you're going to be running small step giant leap. Otherwise, not a horrible position to be in. We could definitely see that Eros played into the Lyra Thespian to allow another character to be anchored while having three characters out. The question will be if that is where they're gonna go with it. Uh, it wouldn't be a bad play. It would cost 7, play the Thespian for free, and it will also gain anchored, so you still have 3 mana left to play with, so we'll have to see how that works out.
For sure. But we might not have anything to play if Kesha takes all of our cards first. Let's check out this a unique Baku here. Two abilities from anywhere. First one is target opponent discards a card from their hand. And the second one is you can put a card from your hand in reserve. If you do, target opponent discards a card from their hand. The fabled double discard Baku coming out here. And in fact, we will be using both modes to fully remove Cole's hand here, unfortunately. So our only cards to be played this turn are going to be the Eros and the Thespian. And in this case, the Thespian would see two boosted characters, so entirely possible that we still get like the maximum amount of use out of these, but also with five mana remaining, a banishing gate here is quite powerful, even as is this off you go, just taking care of the Dragon Shade. And that's
Yeah,
to
it'll
say
be curious to
nothing of the 4 cards in hand.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see if he decides to anchor he will anchor the dragon. So now none of the removal will matter for the 2 cards on the hero expedition. They can
Mhm.
still hit that Eros to get the advance on the companion side and just get rid of the Eros altogether. This may be all they need in order to advance on the companion side and get within that small step territory. They are going to use the banishing gate. I have to imagine it'll be on the Eros, and it is, and we will be looking at a one for one, but Cole is looking good for the next day, assuming we do not see a small step. Yeah, Cole, that Baku's something else I see, and uh, you were getting ready. You had plenty of backup there in your hand, but unfortunately, did not work to your favor. And that's
I've
a from anywhere Baku too, so you're about to get it played on you again.
Yeah, I've had some tornadoes in the area today, and if you're not familiar with the difference between a tornado watch and a tornado warning, Akesha's advance there just brought us from a small step watch to a small step warning. We are deeply in danger if our Akesha is able to find their small step giant leap here. The game will be over immediately, and Cole will not be able to fight his way back so valiantly. So, um,
Yeah,
fingers
if
crossed in the chat
it
for Cole, and there it
there it
is.
is. Yeah, if this was a radio station, we'd have a sound effect with a tornado warning for everyone at the same time as that joke, so,
Lou, I think
um,
it's time to get
unfor
some wall buttons that we put on our desks. We should talk to Simon about funding immediately.
I'll have to get the Patreon going. Everyone
Yeah.
donate now.
well,
Um,
well,
we
congrats to
do see
Shingao on that
yeah,
W against Cole on Tasia. And we will go ahead and head back to find another game, whatever's left in this round here. Honestly, a pretty sweet showing there. Did we see two uniques from each player?
yeah, I believe we did. So, get to see some fun stuff. That Baka was something else, and then Cole's little anchored thespian was fun as well.
Yeah, Cole building his deck with the Icebound Taiga in order to maximize, these anchored abilities that care about cards with three or less. A token does in fact have a cost of three or less, so you get to just keep around a big chunky boy for as many turns as you want. Pretty powerful. We've got quite a few folks here out to wrap up some games. I'm just going to grab the one with the lowest amount of progress on the clock. So we are going to be checking out, I believe this was table 5.
Table
It's
uh,
Agon X versus Uminaria.
okay, gotcha.
And we'll head back down to the table. All right, so we are quite deep in a game with Fen and Crowbar on match point versus an Arak and Kibble. You love to see an underdog. Here comes a Tanuki from our Arak player, and that's going to be sniping a card from the reserve here. Looks like it's that Ouroboros Inkcaster. We'll do a quick scope over these uniques, or not, because Small Step Giant Leap has been played. So
And we
that
do
will
see
secure
that
the win for Fen.
we do see an Eat Me energy bars though on the Finn player, so
We do.
that would have been fun to see. But we do see Megan X take this, also part of their own team that we had not mentioned at this point. So good to see the teams do well in the tournament thus far. It is only the first round. It is Team After You. They have a fun little jaguar as a logo, and Megan X is the captain. Oh, there we
Oh,
go.
awesome. Yeah. I don't know if we ever announced the final numbers for tonight, by the way, but this is the Alter Weekly Online League Season 2, Wednesday Weekly 5. We had 74 players, which might be the high score for this Season 2. I'd have to double check, but it's definitely a very encouraging high number. And we thank you all for being here, both as players and also everybody in the chat. I'm going to head over to table 2. Looks like we might have a tiny bit of game left here. We'll
Which
head
is
back to the
surprising because it
gameplay
is
window.
Freeloader who typically plays Kojo, but is not playing Kojo this time around, instead opting
Aha.
for the fun cylinder typical trace, but I don't see any cylinders out. So, just some
Yeah,
other type of Keylonic varieties going on, but we'll see what's going on here.
I'm going to judge by the deck size that we have a very deep discard pile here. So let's go ahead and dig in real quick. We see a build around Icebound Peak, which cares about characters gaining fleeting before getting our dragon and boosting our entire team. So, um, with the removal of the Haven Bravos Bastion, or the suspension rather, of the shifted version for our Axiom friends, uh, Traced has been in sort of an identity crisis. So with this particular build with our Dragon Shade, we might be seeing some new tech.
And we do see a unique Lyric Chronicler coming out. When a card leaves your reserve during the afternoon, target character gains a boost. Always a good time, especially with a trace. It's essentially kind of replacing the idea of having a Bravo Sebastian Haven by giving a character a boost that's leaving the reserve, but at this point, not being utilized as such after they do get hit by one card in the reserve by that Tooth Fairy, and they will get a nice little, not resupply, but trace stability into a Dr. Frankenstein, which is always nice to see.
Oh yeah, Dr. Frankenstein here is going to give us a very selective resupply. In this particular case, we're looking at a common foundry mechanic and a rare Moona Druid. Moona Druid being a faction shifted rare that gives anchored feels like it's the pick here, and indeed it is.
Yeah, it's not very often that you see a rare Moona Druid in Axiom. I don't know if he's typically using this for the anchored ability or just having a 3-2 in stat setup. Typically, when you're trying to do stuff from reserve or setting up a support ability, you're trying to go off of that Ouroboros Lyra Bastion to potentially resupply some more or go through your deck, but at this moment, it seems like it's just gonna be used for the stats after it leaves the reserve and the Lyric Chronicler can give out a boost.
Yeah, on this particular board, not super exciting to be anchoring our character here, but yeah, additional support abilities in Traced, seeing as they need additional effects that are acting as ways to get cards out of reserve and get those counters up as soon as possible to get her online. It seems to make sense. Oh, and indeed, we are actually going to anchor here. So we will be seeing this Amelia Earhart stick around for one more turn. And a druid, of course, only
Yeah,
anchoring something with cost 3 or less from hand.
yeah, interesting play here. Since it did leave the reserve, they will still get a boost, just won't get the stats from the Muna Druid, and that also may just be because they only had one other play from hand, and it does seem to be the case here by throwing out that 3 cost from hand. Amelia Earhart, not usually the ideal scenario to play that card, but for the time being, they'll take the extra stats.
Lindway is being asked to answer some tough questions. It might even be difficult to get into a spot where we're headed to a final showdown. And if we are, we're going to need a little bit of help from our cards. Hopefully, we have some efficient answers in hand.
Yeah, there's definitely still an opportunity to allow for some sacrificing to happen with that jellyfish in the reserve, or even the one statted tooth fairy over in the hero side, but instead we'll see a Amarok unique come out that allows from anywhere. If I'm the only character in my expedition, I gain 2 boosts, and when another character joins my expedition, sacrifice one character, and it looks like they're just gonna go ahead and sacrifice that jellyfish to boost their maw out, and then sacrifice that tooth fairy with the Baba's Isba to get the maw up again and allow for a 1 for 1, and we're into the tiebreaker. Ooh.
Very nicely played. That Amarok is definitely a cool piece, and we will be seeing essentially a showdown versus. We still have this very powerful Lyra Chronicler and a single cost Amelia Earhart, both of which are quite strong. But with the combination of a free Maw token this turn plus the Amarok, we might see some additional heat. So certainly not counting either player out at this time.
We may be looking into coming up to time here, potentially fairly soon. It did end up working out for Freeloader on the trace to be able to anchor that Amelia Earhart, even though we thought that wasn't going to be the case. But helping out here at least in the tiebreaker, and they'll go ahead and throw out that Chronicler out again to just allow anytime something leaves the reserve for more boosts to show up. But we'll have to see how this comes out. We have a lot of talking going on.
When Ma enters this side, we might have the sacrifice on the chrysalis, so just tons of value coming out from this Lindaway. But Traced is the original value engine, and we see that happening right now with how many cards are flipping about the screen.
Yeah, that Lyra Chronicler is basically doing the work of 3 Haven Bravos Bastions at this point
It's pretty impressive.
that can no longer be in this deck. Just putting constant cards in the reserve and then getting a boost on every single one of them as they leave the reserve as the ability allows. So Freeloader was probably just fine with that permanent leaving the game and is just gonna take his chronicler that costs a little bit more, but at least it comes with stats and you can play it twice, so
Yeah. We do, in fact, here see a Tooth Fairy come out, likely drawn off that Amarok, but if it had been in hand and Trace had not led with this Lyra Chronicler, it feels like a foregone conclusion. But yeah, I mean, both players are putting up insane stats still. Um, Lindway still got a card left and access to an After You off of Baba's Isba, which would indeed boost Maw. So no net loss of stats on the board. Oh, but this trace has truly just gone fully off the rails here. So many stats all over the board. These boosts have gone crazy. Um, all regions in
mm.
double digit numbers right now. Uh oh.
And the one card I think they needed there was an Off You Go to kinda balance it out, but it still won't
Hmm.
be quite enough. Freeloader will take it in both the mountain and the water terrains.
Absolutely. Well played to both. And it sounds like Symbiosis, I believe, was saying that they felt they had some different plays they could have made that game that might have changed things around. So I'd be interested to hear more about that. But congratulations. And it looks like we will be heading into a new match shortly with round two. How
Nice.
we feeling so
Hello
far
to
tonight,
K
Blue?
Good. I'm just saying hello to Kayuko over there in the chat. Looks like them and Cole are talking to each other, filling out the chat here in the YouTube. If you guys have any questions, feel free to throw them out there for us, and we'll be glad to answer to the best of our ability. We aren't all knowing, but pretty much. So just go ahead and put it there if you don't know something in particular. But good tournament thus far as we go into round two of the Swiss.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so we do indeed have round two paired. Is there anybody in particular that you would like to take a look at right now? Or should I just hop into a
Well,
table at random?
I have an idea of some folks that we might be seeing later, but I actually haven't seen this player in a while. They gained to popularity playing a full non-unique deck in the early days of
Hmm,
AWOL. So let's go to table three with Nalastra versus Altered Aces Popeye.
fantastic.
Glad you asked that, Cole. There's a lot of options when you get into different variations of your Roth IRAs and your 401ks. At the end of the day, diversifying your investments will usually help you. We've seen a net gain in the stock market over the past decade. Realistically, it's gone down r- as far as the last couple of weeks or with different setups, but you can't really hurt yourself by continuing to invest. But I would also recommend getting into any type of position that will allow you a pension. Pensions are by far the number one setup, and you can't always count on just a 401k for your investment strategies. Also, crypto's fine sometimes too, even though that's kind of taking a shit at the moment. Glad you asked that though. Financial advice is not recommended by me, but I can at least throw some bullshit out.
Well, we are all set. The box art has finally loaded and we are ready for round two. We are headed down after the first day. Kesha has placed a couple of moths onto the field via this moth to a flame. Excuse me, a single moth. This is not the rare. And a little sabotage action possible coming up from this monolith gate here soon. So a card to be wary of on the Akesha side. Who do you like in this particular matchup, Blue?
It's hard to bet against a Sigismar at this point in the meta. I have seen Elastra do some fun stuffs with the Akesha since the very beginning of season one of Altered. So I'll be curious to see what they've come up with since that time. I haven't been doing too bad, it looks like, with a solid 400 elo on BGA. But again, hard to underestimate a Sigismar, especially starting off with a day one 2-0 advance.
Yeah,
Yeah,
2 advance.
Moth IRA is
All right, so we see yet another progression here for Sigismar. Doing the typical strategy of get ahead and stay ahead. Akesha, cards that we've seen so far looking pretty good. Um, Not really feeling like it's too clunky of a game plan or anything. Just we're just seeing the brutal efficiency of the Sigismar deck.
Yeah, they do end up getting the draw off of the attorney despite giving up an advance to the Akesha, so I don't think they're complaining too hard. I'm not sure if Popeye runs or what variation of permanents they might run in their deck. I'm personally a big fan of the Grand Endeavor, but I know a lot of folks have been leaning towards the Monolith Ortis Bastion these days. So, being this far ahead, it wouldn't be a bad time to give up some tempo and set yourself up, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the play this turn.
Yeah, I mean they have the expedition progressions to burn here, but why make that play when we can just keep on churning out good statted characters? And if our opponent decides to cut us off here, we'll just draw cards and sabotage them. It'll be fine.
Easy peasy. As we move forward here, we'll have to see after that, after you, what Nalastra has available. It looks like we'll just see that Baba Yaga from the reserve. They also have the option to throw out that Moth to a Flame again. It won't get that additional benefit that Afanis players as far as the Moth to a Flame and throwing out a boosted up Moth. But a 2/2/2 token for 2 cost isn't absolutely horrible. It just won't be quite as good as you would typically see from the Afanis.
Yeah, a pretty serviceable effect there. I'm curious if they have any other particular synergies built in that makes this Moth to a Flame a little more enticing, particularly in Akesha. But yeah, as you mentioned, a fine card as it is. Um, Drawing a card here off of one of our bureaucrats. And as it stands, pretty close as far as cards go, but Siggy quite out in the lead right now on progressions. We're going to have to see Akesha either slow the game down as we move towards some of those late game cards, or just kind of keep pace with what Siggy's doing. But this one of token in the hero expedition every turn is just constantly requiring some maintenance or removal by the other player. It gets tiring as the Akesha player. I think this was actually the first match I ever played with the starter decks at Gen Con. I was on Akesha, and my Sigismar opponent, I just felt that couldn't possibly be what was happening here, but it certainly was. Oh, and we see a Grand Endeavor coming down. So with Tough 2, um, Akesha does have a chance to immediately answer this with something like a Banishing Gate. And in fact, they have it. So down goes this, and we've essentially just time walked each other. Both players have passed their turn, but once again, with that token, we're still going to see that progression from Siki. We are now
Yeah,
seeing a three expedition lead.
yeah, and the last year got put in a kind of weird spot there. I had to imagine they've been holding on to that banishing gate as to
Hmm.
take care of a potential grand endeavor, since I'm pretty sure that's the only removal that Ysmir typically throws in their deck to take care of a permanent like that. But with that and the super useful hero ability of Sigismar, still gets the advance at the end of the day and is now just 2 away on the tumult after that 6 cost, 6 cost play for each hero.
Yeah. Now, something we don't see every day, a rare Pomola, sort of looking at this the same way we got the rare Baba Yaga of boosting up those stats on this character that we want to play for sure. So I'm guessing that we are yet to see a Withering Tree hiding in this deck somewhere, which might explain some of these moth cards that we're seeing as well. Just leaning into the synergies among the cards for that create these moth tokens too.
Yeah, I was thinking of the same thing as far as the Withered Tree as we see that second Grand Endeavor come out. And with the current state of the board, this
Oof.
means that Nalastra on the Akesha has to find another banishing gate either this day or the next, and it wasn't going to come this day with the amount of mana that they had remaining, because even with multiple 2-0 advances, they will not win the game and only put themselves in position of potentially small stepping But now all the Sigismar player has to do is keep that Grand Endeavor on the board, and it is pretty much just a lock to take this game.
Yeah, brutal to see those on back-to-back turns here from the Akesha side of things, especially when you lead out with a reasonably low-cost card, but that does indeed stop you from playing if that second Banishing Gate if it was available at the time. And now we're looking at a turn where this Banishing Gate, if it's available, will cost us 6 to get rid of this Grand Endeavor, and in so doing, remove all but 2 of our mana for the turn. So Sigismar almost certainly has a chance to still get a progression here.
Yeah, honestly, the Grand Endeavor play and why I like it so much is with the amount of Ysmir play that we see, specifically from Afanis more than Akesha, and they often only run the Banishing Gate as removal, and they often only do it in 1 to 2 per deck, if that, and I've seen some just remove it completely, opting for other cards that they prefer more to play more consistently. And if you can just get ahead as a Sigismar, play that Grand Endeavor, and they can't get rid of it, they're pretty much on a ticking time clock to decide if they're going to lose one way or another. And it's just not cheap to deal with it. And honestly, the best cards and the best heroes that we can see that can deal with Grand Endeavor is probably Kojo or Basira being able to play that 2 cost rare mana eruption, only having to throw 4 mana at it opposed to something like 6 mana with a Banishing Gate.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to talk about the Muna mana eruption that was seeing play for a while, but we've got too much action on the board to keep going there. We've got three uniques coming out back to back. In this case, an Ordis Gatekeeper, which is the typical army in a can token producer at only a 2 cost, which is pretty impressive. But that was swiftly answered by our Akesha player here with a Daring Porter, getting exhausted resupply and also creating mana moth. So also a little army in a can character. I quite like that one indeed. And then we see this Belasenka too. Fortunately, the game has ended due to the progression here, but yeah, this Belasenka double from hand abilities that are pretty nice. I like seeing that players are using some of these new uniques from the new set. It feels like so many resources were poured into securing those really strong beyond the gates ones for some of our players' competitive decks. And now we're starting to see that as those cards are circulating through the community, we can build into those cards for our strategies too. So well played by both players, and congratulations to Siggy for that win. We will go ahead and head to another game here in just a moment.
Yeah, that was one of those $500 Belisenka uniques that we see people trying to sell these days. I don't know why it's just Belisenka that everyone's trying to sell for large amounts of money. I think everyone just likes the character or something, but Belisenka uniques are through the roof. Stocks are high. Now's the time to sell, sell, sell. As long as we're talking about different things. So, what do
I've
we got
heard
next?
I've heard rumors that these are entirely manufactured pump and dumps by Cole, who is trying to maximize his Moth IRA right now. But these are just
Yeah.
rumors.
Yeah, that's
Let's
raising
go.
the raising the GDP, a keyword.
All right, so we're gonna head into uh, table 10, which is going to be Lucox and Gigi Need.
Sounds
Sorry for that
like a plan.
pronunciation.
You're
Uh,
good.
All right, so yeah, still some game to be played here. We're looking at an Afanis versus Navenka. Both players have pretty good board presence. Navenka running on fumes in hand, but that's never stopped her from being able to put out some anchored or otherwise gain value. And indeed, we have the rare Martingale here, which allows us to alter the result of our die roll. But even with that ability, they've chosen to go for the +1 counter on this Tanuki instead of anchoring a character, which currently is fully preventing Aphanis from progressing on the companion expedition. So probably a good heads up play there. And it looks like both players will be progressing on the hero expedition.
Yep, we'll get a one-for-one expedition with a weird same side kind of advancement, but that's what happens when you play a Haven Saringer at some points, and it's weird to see them on a Lyra setup. I think I've only seen it ran on Aurak decks recently, but maybe Navenka's trying to take it. And we may also be looking at a small step off, deciding who's going to take it first here. Navenka will have the first crack at it, and then we'll see if Faunus will decide to use it themselves, or if neither will. Could be able to see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a long-term Afanis stan, but I think there would be some bittersweet satisfaction in Nevenka getting the priority to play a small step giant leap and snatch that victory out of Izmir's hands.
Yeah, Simon. I think I also have seen it in Findex. That was kind of the reason why I had mentioned earlier on that I've been a big fan of Finn lately. They've had some new cards in Trial by Frost that I like to see, or it allows more utility than the typical of not being able to decide your mana. At least you can decide to pick up cards from the reserve more often. As we see a Snowball Commando coming out from Navenka, rolling some dice and exhausting some folks as well.
Yeah, the common snowball commando here, decent stats, and has that from hand ability. A cool, I mean, as somebody who likes designing cards, I love the true feel of a snowball fight there. It's quite nice. And we'll get this resupply into a winter coat, taking away one of the downsides of the Lyra cards as they stand with their zero stats. Just a nice way to pump everything around. But Rhyme Frost is going to say, no, we'd like you to keep no forest stat. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and that will put out a what is it, chat? Moth, on the companion side, and that will have enough stats in the forest to potentially advance here and take a double advance to the Navenka's maybe only one. Each player has only one available to them, and we will just see the Tanuki that is, fortunately for them, having that 3 forest stat to potentially block the Aphanus. So now it all comes down to the one card in hand, truly down to the wire. We may be looking at another tiebreaker in the arena.
All right, Blue. Is this last card in hand? A, the slow rolled small step giant leap. B, the perfect removal for the Tanuki. Or C, a magical training which will be played from both sides and reveal a removal spell that costs one too many.
Feels like if it was any type of removal that we would have seen it played already, and yeah, we'll just see the pass. So that doesn't look like they have anything. It would have been quite awesome if we did see the small step giant leap there. I would have given a full on clap to uh, the Afanis player for just letting the Navenka player think that they won
Sweat
the
it out.
game. Yeah, but, they decide not to, and we do see the one roll onto
Oh
the Snowball
my.
Commando, although it doesn't matter because they did not target their Tanuki, so,
Yeah.
we will end up going to that, tiebreaker here. Small steps will no longer matter. The Venka will have to decide with all those cards in the reserve, and, we're down to just 2 cards in reserve, 1 card in hand for the Aphanus, and
Yeah.
a slight mana advantage while having a withered tree out. So I'd have to give currently the edge to the Aphanus, especially with a one cost Mage Dancer in play in the reserve.
Yeah. I think that ultimately the answer to the question of what card was in hand, it was D, the Kraken with the steel chair. But at this point, not a card we're going to see played by our Aphanis player. No good in this particular board setup. But we have three other mystery cards in hand, and we'll see where they go. Neither player mana-ing there this turn, is that right?
Yep, didn't look like either of them did. Faunus will still maintain that mana advantage, trying getting that moth out by getting that exhausted resupply with the Vike. And because Vike allows you to play exhausted cards, we still may get to see that Baba Yaga be played from reserve. So now we just get the quick back and forth of everyone just play all your cards and see who can win.
Mm-hmm. Here comes a magical training. And those folks are going to dance the night away into a progression here, I believe, for our Bukox player on a
Yeah,
Faunus.
yeah, I thought just the one mage dancer was gonna be hard to deal with, and having that second one come out, making it a lot more difficult for the Navenka. I would almost have to say that they need some type of interaction here, and they will silent night, so they may be able to sleep something, but unfortunately, it hits the anchored, and it will only anchor the Vike. I think they were definitely looking to get that sleep effect on a roll of 1 to 3.
Yeah, absolutely. Silent Night's a fun one. Having to select the character before you roll is just devious. I love it.
Yeah,
Interesting to
unfortunately,
see.
not yeah, not running the rare version of it, so you get to choose afterwards. Not that it would have mattered there. I think they needed the sleep no matter what,
Yeah,
but what can you do?
I was interested here by the split between the rare and common category and mage dancers as well for this deck. It looks like we're on two rares, one common. But
Yeah,
we'll go ahead.
you usually see them go one way or the other. Maybe they're just
Hmm.
testing things out. It did look like a different type of a fauna deck than we may usually see on the top end tables, so maybe they're just trying something out from that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, I love to see some tinkering, especially, we're in week 5. There's still plenty of life left in this format. And, if we all decide that the meta has solidified in the first couple weeks, we're not going to see any exciting progressions. And, players here in AWOL are more than willing to try some new stuff. We saw with Cole in that first round, just tons of new cards and some pretty cool strategies with multiples of the Spirit Dragon uh, permanents that have come out with Trial by Frost.
Indeed, indeed. We are down to the very end of the Swiss round 2 at this point. Did you
Yeah,
already jump into another game?
I am sneaking into table 22 at this moment.
Table 22 it is. We're gonna get to watch 2 folks battle it out, and it is a Yzmiroth with 2 trees being planted for the Akesha.
Two trees is no joke. Those are quite powerful when putting out characters into the Siphonis and essentially a free 4 stats per turn after you play them down. You know, Investing in those early is a, a bit of a cost, but now we kind of get the value engine running. And indeed, Siphonis here sort of low on resources, not terribly so, but uh, with this one progression ahead, they could have the small step giant leap to just close the game immediately, or they could be fighting for their life over the next couple turns.
Yeah, it was a bit odd to see the end of that day with no characters out, having both
Hmm.
trees exhausted and about 4 or 5 cars in the reserve for the Afanis. So we definitely had some interactables going on between both Ysmir heroes, preventing either of them from keeping a character out for too long and being able to advance and in the game.
Yeah, it would have been cool to see all the crazy interactions from that turn, but as it stands, we're just heading into this possible final day.
Potential indeed. I think we would have might have seen the small step giant leap at this point, so we're realistically gonna see some other characters come out. Maybe that blade dancer, it is the blade dancer, and then maybe have that boosted up some more. And we'll see if we can in fact get to see some more moths.
Hey
And not right
yo,
now.
not quite yet, but an
Yeah.
off you go on this season character is going to do just fine to start.
It will, and the Afanis may be limited with the amount of characters they can come out with. The Baba Yaga is not a bad one to throw out there, especially with the ability to draw. So now we just got to wait and see if we get some exhaustion happening, if we just get a moth to a flame thrown out there. Who knows?
Yeah, it looks like both players are hoping to find something exciting off the top here. Baba Yaga plus magical training so far, and now this moth to a flame.
And we do get to see Moth. Moth is
Mhm.
coming out. Due to paying 3 costs for the magical training draw, we have to assume that there wasn't very much left for the Akesha in hand, and we'll see if they're able to get anything with that draw that they got from the magical training. that will help them out. Just the off you go by itself will not be enough to stop the Afanis, so they definitely need something in hand, and it's a Baba Yaga.
So we have the Baba Yaga for the card draw. There are cards in the card pool that could sleep the Baba Yaga and make this competitive still, but yeah, the off you go is going to shut it out for the Akasha player here. And
Wrapping
indeed
it
it
up.
does.
Yeah, wrapping it up. Still a fun game to watch the end of at the very least. We ended up getting up to 10 mana in total for the Afanis. Don't usually get to see them move that far along as far as mana reserves are concerned, but I have to imagine that'll be the end of round 2 of the Swiss.
Yeah, I only saw the one other active match when we were heading into that one, so we should be right up against the ending here. Oh, it looks like Mr. Kohlrabi might be holding us up just a little bit heading into round 3. We'll head into that game now. We're on turn 10 when Tiny Jin is slightly less effective as a threat, but still providing some stats in Mountain, which are not going to do anything here. And here comes another
Leave it
Tiny
to
Jin.
Yeah, leave it to Cole to drag his game out, making us all wait for him. Always talking about being on time, but this time around making everyone be behind instead of like getting through the games quickly. We wanna get a record here for AWOL and get through the Wednesday tournament, but not on your watch, I guess, right?
I have to imagine that deciding who was the turn player was both Tasia's just saying after you and apologizing for 5 minutes. So that might be why we're seeing a bit of a time delay. But both players moving forward in their game plans as we
No, there's only one Canadian here, so maybe not that many sorries. Fool's not known to be the sorry type. I mean, sorry at the game, but not verbally at least.
speak.
So we do see two tiny gens coming out, though, a little bit of ramp going on, and a kind of a mana disparity between each of the Tasias.
Yeah, Cole both lamenting his luck in chat and bragging about how much ramp he has. So we are looking like we've missed out on drawing these Icebound Taigas for this game, which are key to his strategy from what we've seen of these rare Persephones and also just maximizing our plays when we have out these Yetis and some of these other characters. Looking in the discard here, we found a Mowgli, a Lost in the Woods, Beauty Sleep, and a Persephone this game. So really not a whole lot of resources expended here that haven't been turned into mana over the course of the game.
Yeah, it seemed weird to see 2 tiny gens on either side of the expedition zones and neither of them being in a mountain terrain, but
Hmm.
it kinda makes a little bit more sense now that we see the winter outfits popping up. Question is will it make a difference here for the future plays that they have left? I did also look at that unique sneezer shroom for the bottom Tasia to see what it may do, and it only looks like it when it gains a boost, you can if you control 3 or more characters, up to 1 target character with hand cost 3 or less, gains anchored. So it doesn't look like that's gonna be happening anytime soon, but, that also may allow Cole to even get that much closer to taking a victory.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to do a quick look through this discard as well because the mana disparity of 6 to 10 is incredible. And indeed, we see uh, it looks like 3 mana reapings have been played this game by Coco, as well as Cole's natural ramp plan. It looks like may have contributed 1 crystal itself. So helping to explain the 6v10 mana crystals here.
Yeah, can the chat that is currently in BGA just talking back and forth about a white monster, go to the YouTube chat instead? We need to build up our numbers. Come on, AWOL, not BGA. We're promoting AWOL here. Not that anyone of you are hearing me at this point. As we go into negative time for the bottom Tasia. Oh my gosh, so much stuff.
If folks aren't joining our chat and are playing in the BGA chat instead, we might have to start putting up like, comment, and subscribe, and ring the bell notifications on the AWOL chats as well. Every tournament report is going to come with those YouTuber classics, so you've been warned.
I just threatened everybody, and then Cole linked the YouTube, so appreciate that. Um,
Beautiful.
if you guys don't wanna get banned from AWOL mid-tournament, join the chat, say hi, or make fun of Cole, one of the 2. Okay, thanks, Westville, I appreciate that. Shout out to Westville for being able to type in VGA chat and hear me at the same time. Love you. After all that play, though, Kohlrabi only getting 1 advance.
Yep. Sadly, moving directly into that mountain region, just as all of our Jins seem to be abandoning us.
Indeed. Hel
Yep.
Oh, it's a Lyra Thespian. Honestly, an amazing card in the Tasia setup. Being able to throw out a 5/5/5 character for only 2 stats. Whew, I'll take that any day.
Oh. Cole says, I would not take that any day. I'd rather watch it go to sleep. So, sleep coming out here from the reserve. Only one card left for Coco here. Let's see what they can do to maximize it, or if Cole is just going to get to run away with it here. It's a meditation training. So, if
So not
Cole
that
can
many.
present a
Yeah.
couple of stats, literally one stat, there we go. All
Oh my
right.
god, he did it. Just bravo. Bravo,
Proud,
Cole. You did
proud,
it.
proud dad moment.
He got one of his wins for the day. Everyone congratulate Cole in the chat. He deserves it. Thank you to all of our English and French speakers that may be in the YouTube chat. Always glad to have some additional folks here. We're always looking for more commentators too. If you are interested in more than just playing the game, we can always throw you in here to talk about how much you know about the game or how little you know. So yeah, into that game.
Yeah. Thank you for everybody who's joining us now and who's just subscribed to the channel too. Um, Pretty exciting round two. We managed to watch four different games there, and Afanas crushed. Siggy did well, and we got to see the Tasia Mir won out by Cole with way too many mana orbs. So that was a good one. Um, I think that Simon's going to have to start giving out outside assistance warnings to players who make the chat too distracting during our games.
It's all good. Sebastian, if I knew Spanish quite well enough, I would be able to give a shout out to all the Spanish speakers as well. But in the meantime, I'm only super proficient in English. I understood you when you were typing in the chat at the very least. So if you want to cuss me out in the meantime, that's fine. I'll give you a shout out on the next game.
Yeah, I can passably read French and make jokes about Moth IRAs, and that's about the limits of my power. So, sorry, Sebastian. All right, so we are heading into round three, and we're gonna shy away from the top tables for just one more round. We'll be looking at some of those folks as we head into the final turns, but I'm gonna move a little bit down the way, and let's check out table 16. I don't actually recognize either of these characters, and they have a wonderful avatar. So that's how I chose this round.
Easy enough. Table 16 it is, and we'll see another Akesha. Haven't seen as many Akeshas as I have this day, so first time around, we were seeing a bunch of Lindaways being played on Monday by the EU players, and now we're seeing a bunch of Akeshas being played by some North American and South American players potentially. So shout out to you guys, including all Spanish speakers and South American players as well. Notice how I did that this time? You probably understand me, so more than I'm able to understand Spanish. So I appreciate you. Either way, one
Yeah,
for one.
gotta love an easy progression trade there. Um, I'm also noticing that every time I've cast, it seems like there is just like a hero of the night. And as you mentioned, Akesha and Tasia both showing up in spades right now. Um, the previous night, it felt like every matchup I watched was a Tasia versus Kojo, and indeed that played through all the way to the finals. So be interesting to see if we can escape these two heroes for just a minute and try to find some more spice like that Auroch from the round one. or if we are in for this exact same battle every time. We'll see. But right now, we are going ahead and playing a Spindle and a Bastion. Be getting boosts in the near future, quite powerful, and giving tough two to our characters. Excellent in this particular matchup, where Akesha is more than likely to have a good bit of removal. We'll see how Akesha can respond here.
Yeah, you don't often get to see that Muna Bastion as far as the spindle pop up too much anymore, especially with the new gears popping up, being able to protect anchored characters. But if you can get it this early and take benefit of that at noon and giving a character a boost, why not? But we'll not be able to play that Muna caregiver as we see a Baku knocking out a discard.
Yeah, I have enjoyed some games of Akesha in my days, and Baku is just a really fun one to push some people's buttons. When you manage to snipe out that last card or make them make a tough choice, with how small the hands are starting in this game, you just really feel like every resource counts, and Baku just comes in to thumb their nose at you and steal one of those cards.
Indeed, they do, especially if they're a unique Baku that makes you discard 2 cards for some reason. Cole may know something about that. But if not, just the 1 discard will do just fine for having to knock out that Tasia from only having 1 card in hand at this point, and 1 card on the expeditions. But it is not a rare Baku at the very least, so we won't see it played from reserve from that capacity. But we will see that Floral Tint pop out.
Yeah, Floral Tent, a great way to make a recovery in the face of a Baku. And indeed, we're going to see that it resupplies an Ogun. So possibly in the. Oh, never mind. There goes a Spycraft. Spycraft is going to snipe away this card and get one for ourselves. In this particular case, a Conjuring Seal. With how much cushion we have as the Akesha player right now, um, we might just look at going towards the long game, continuing to manage the resources out of Tasia, or we might decide to let this Conjuring Seal go and just blitz out our characters to steal some spots on the tumult as our Akesha player is looking for additional cards. What do you think is most likely to happen there, Blue?
It'll be interesting at this point. I feel like since they're both pretty far away on the tumult, the Akesha player can at this point just wait it out and gain the hand advantage that Ysmir heroes typically like to do, and just let um, the Tasia player do whatever at this point. They're not going to have anything anchored other than potentially the Sneezer Shroom on play here, and have definitely more cards in hand, especially if they decide to play that Conjuring Seal again, which honestly might not be too bad of an idea if they can make that Tasia spend a little bit of mana in order to take one or both sides. And yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff in chat too, real quick.
Hmm?
Um, yeah, Cole, Muna might be popular, but that also requires you guys to win games, and unfortunately for all of you, Hyper K can't play all of the games for you. So I don't know if Muna's gonna take Kurokami this time around. Unfortunate though.
Also, Guy Trying, nice to see you in chat.
Also, and take the time that if you guys want, I know Guy Trying's a big Ysmir fan. If you want to go ahead and pass along your Ysmir playmat from the recent event this last weekend, go ahead and reach out to me in DMs on Discord. I'll be glad to take it off your hands. Unique Flamel available
Ah, let's take a
for
look see.
the Akisha player.
All right. Returning a spell from reserve to hand when played from anywhere, and an at dusk ability to swap a card from hand for a card in the reserve. So, pretty nice here. Reasonably squared up stats for a 4/4 character. So, yeah, lots of value and cool things you get to do with that. Also, getting to play out this Katagirian Alchemist and score a double progression, it looks like. The second spindle that came in on this turn is going to pretty much slam the door on removal unless Akesha is absolutely desperate to play it out. And in this case, I think they're going to be more than happy to just try to get their on card advantage alone. Um, and yeah, with a double progression here, the player is going to be struggling to get back up to that same level.
Yeah, although they're pretty well protected with both of those bastions, I don't think when they were getting draws that previous day that they were hoping, "Oh, I really hope I get another Muna Bastion to protect my Caesar Shroom." They were probably hoping for a character or maybe some removal of their own, but they don't end up getting it, and now they're down to just 1 card to defend this Akesha, who's probably gonna look to try to either double advance or single advance and maybe hit the Tasia player with a small step.
Yeah, when we see something like a Baku coming out of this Akesha deck, do you think there's any validity to holding on to that second spindle, or do you like the idea of just making an impenetrable fortress out of your field and hoping to find the right cards after the fact?
I mean, there's some merit to the idea of holding cards in your hand and showing a little having a little bit of mystery, but then there's also multiple ways that Akesha can hit you. Not even your hand is safe, like you mentioned with the Baku. So it's a weird one. When I'm playing Akesha or any Ysmir hero, I'm not imagining that I'm going to see a Baku 90% of the time, but sometimes they'll throw it in there and they'll surprise you. So you can only play around so many things, and with the one for one that we see going on here, I have to believe the Akesha is fine with just taking the individual advancement on the tumult, which means we're probably seeing a small step giant leap here this next day.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all to see that come through. And no problem to discard a bunch of cards from reserve if you're winning on the same turn. Both players deciding if they need a crystal here. Looks like we are not seeing a placement from our Tasia player.
Makes sense at this point, only having a few cards left to be able to be played, especially going first. And as predicted, we see a small step and a giant leap to
Yep.
take the game.
Tasia actually went ahead and just passed their turn after they drew, it looked like, too. So, yeah, congratulations to Saturn there. And I love the Mochi profile picture. Let's go into our next match. Headed back to the board right now. And we're going to continue to look at some of the tables on the lower end at the moment, see if we can find any sweet spice before we see how much of it has bubbled up to the top tables. How are you feeling about table 19, Blue?
Table 19 with only 43% sounds like a winner.
All right. Loading that up here. And we'll switch back to gameplay to see yet another Izmir mirror.
Ooh, we
This
get to
time
see a little bit
around,
of,
yeah,
yeah, sacrifice happening in here.
seems that our
Oh,
Lindway. Hmm?
go ahead. Sorry.
You're good. I was gonna say our Lindway player has found a rare moth lantern, so getting all of the sacrifice shenanigans going.
Yep, we'll have the Moth Lantern and the Baba's Isba available to them if they decide to use it, although they did have their Maw taken out by the Off You Go, it looks like there. And a guy trying, if that was your attempt to actually make me trade you, instead of rubbing packs and winning the mat in my face, probably not a good decision. Also, Blue Oak TV on YouTube, also a guy trying on YouTube. See, you get a promotion, you're welcome. Either way. Um, yeah, easy Baba's Isba play to knock out that Chrysalis and get a free double, nope, not a double advance, but at least a single advance.
Yeah, a single advance, but a double dip on moths. Once again, the moth IRA is increasing dramatically, and you can't stop it.
Yep, Moth.
A little rare boom action, love to see that, especially with the sacrifice energies here.
Yeah, I'm also a big fan of rare boom in Axiom. I like being able to knock out some especially with the new Sierra decks in general, when you can hit gears that typically aren't helping you otherwise to boom some stuff.
Interesting to see Lindaway just slam that Maw down right away. I'm curious how we're going to see the Siphonis respond here. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
maybe
I
looking into an
typically
after you right now, but I don't know.
yeah. Yeah, it's a bit weird because typically you'd wanna save putting out your maw so that way it's not vulnerable to things like Off You Go and some
Mm.
type of interactable. But it doesn't look like that's gonna be the case at the moment with the Aphonis only having 1 card left in hand, and we see another lantern hit the board.
Second lantern,
Moth.
pretty powerful here. Another moth. And are we getting another moth off the second lantern, or did I miss that already? That looks like this
It
one.
popped up.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's already three off you goes in the Aphonis' discard, so maybe we're
Ah,
just thinking as the or the Lindaway player, coast is kind of clear. Beauty sleep is
nice.
good here. Um, might be scoring a double progression as Aphonis, but even so, Aphonis is looking at access to Beauty sleep and a Mage Dancer from reserve on the following turn, and then whatever's off the top of their decks. Whereas this Lindaway player just has gas for days.
Yep, they will throw out that one studious disciple and have a Isba to be able to sacrifice it and throw moths and boost up that maw themselves, allowing for a flip. Little fun play there if someone wants to clip that in YouTube.
Yeah, no
That was a
kidding.
fun little like Afanis thought he had the 2-0 and then all of a sudden moth and Linda Way takes the 2-0.
Lindaway is the only confirmed character in universe that does have access to an Uno reverse card, so good to see that flavor win for our Lindaway player. All right, Lindaway choosing not to play a mana orb here, and indeed, Sonri is saying GG. So both players might know something we don't.
Giving it up, huh?
Oh, sort of a still had all these. A weird concept for the small step giant leaf on BGA is you can't just kind of flash the card at the end of the matchup, but it is what it is. Well played to both players, especially the very exciting sequencing at the end of that turn for Lindway that allowed that player to uh, get that double progression, which immediately netted them a win off of the small step. Very cool.
Yeah, that was a fun little moth play. Moth IRA is coming in strong, as you mentioned earlier. So yeah.
All right, so we've
Alright.
got a couple matchups left. I think 57% is the lowest I'm seeing right now. So we'll go ahead and hop into. We're not seeing Cole again. We we know what's happening there. Let's head to table 7. This is going to be Magan X versus Wesh.
So we got a little bit of a team battle here with Team After You with Megan X and Altered Aces with Wesh.
Right, a second Lindway in a row. Pretty exciting. That deck has definitely been picking up steam in the last couple weeks. And also Fen trying out this Icebound Taiga. I'm loving how many Icebound cards we've seen tonight. Players definitely experimenting and leaning into the value of these Dragon Shades.
Yeah, as far as like a specific archetype that's assigned to each faction, I think these sites, as far as the permanents are concerned, have been an overall success, I'd have to imagine. I think the peak in Bravos is pretty prevalent if you want to use it. The Taiga itself seems to be doing well. What else is there that's been doing well? Oh, the lake tech in Gold Ring has been fun. But yeah, it's cool seeing multiple variations in people messing with these permanents.
Yeah, I remember playing them in limited and also seeing how prevalent they were going to be with some of the like the promotions and stuff for this set. Wasn't super jazzed about them going in, but they're certainly showing their worth. And kudos to the designers for giving us all these little quests to go on.
Yep, everyone loves a good dragon. And speaking of dragon, we had a little bit of talk about who's going to win Kuro Kami as far as factions are concerned. Go Ortis. But feel free if anyone's listening in chat, argue some more in the chat so that way we can push up our YouTube live chat metrics and say, look, oh, wow, how successful we are. Look at all these people chatting it up. But in the meantime, we get to watch some good Finn versus Lindaway play and some heroes that weren't too popular at the end of season one, but seems to be picking up some steam, like you mentioned here in season two with Trial by Frost.
Definitely. And with this conversation in the YouTube chat about the dragon, if folks don't know, you can check out on the Altered website. But this Dragon Shade token is actually an in-universe character, and players who are competing in the season passes, whichever faction wins is going to get that dragon into their faction and have access to that card in their collections. So, a cool promotion from the company and something that you're not going to see very often in TCGs these days. So, very cool. Starshine Shyman says, Bravos on top. Debate. Close. Blue is a wizard with shades.
Yeah, that's true. To be fair, they haven't actually seen my tongue yet, so I could still be a dragon.
Hmm.
I'll leave that secret for people that meet me at PAX East.
The blue lore is he wears the shades because his eyes blink sideways.
Yeah, actually a lizard. Only a few people have seen me without the official setup here. You got to get into an interview for one of my videos if you want to see me sans shades. It's crazy. And I look nothing like this. Either way, back into the game. Ma is available.
And suddenly
And
Ma has been deliciously consumed and become 2 cards instead.
good dragon or bad dragon? I think that's kind of the same discussion that I was having before with Jalix as far as is there any such thing as a good witch? Because I feel like all witches are bad. There's a reason why they were burned alive in Salem. Can't have witches overrunning the entire eastern coast of the United States. Can you imagine where we'd be now if they hadn't taken out those witches? Crazy.
I think we'd have no worries about flying cars. I'd be down to
It's
fly on a
true.
broom.
Maybe Harry Potter would be actually real life if they hadn't taken him out, but maybe not. Who knows? The
Yeah,
entire eastern seaboard could be in flames because of those witches, but luckily the brave people of Salem were able to stop them. Icebound Taiga getting the counter there, so that's
here we
good for
go.
the Finn.
Yeah, Fen has strategized the placement of their cards. They're going to be going in and out of the reserve, and it looks like this Nyala is where we're starting. I do sympathize with the need for a Fen and Crowbar player to figure out which of their 25 cards they have access to on any given turn, in what order they're going to play them. This game does really punish you if you are not familiar with how your cards are being deployed and what your opponent's up to. You can get into spots like I don't think it was the Aphanis' fault last game, but you get into spots where something like a Lindaway is able to pull the rug out from under you and switch up all their stats and get a double progression. So lots to think about from both players, but especially when you have access to so many face-up cards like Fen is going to have on most turns.
Yeah, the one thing benefiting the Finn at this point is that they do have those that one cost winter outfits available to potentially slow play, but they're going to go ahead and use that Esmeralda instead and leave another winter outfits available to play on either side of the expedition.
Yeah, Lindaway starting off the turn by essentially just removing that Maw right away in search of new cards put me in a position where I was a little nervous about what they'd be able to uh, make happen this turn. But this Fen player has been playing cautiously, getting through all of the cards that they've been able to resupply or switch around from their hand, and Lindway is still making moves. So this turn could go either way as far as progressions go.
Indeed, only a limited amount of mana left for both heroes at this point, so it'll be interesting to see who can take it. We have a lot of interesting things going on in the chat. It looks like Freeloaders, Teletubby, no, it's Keelan guys, is Lala. It's good to know. What does anyone know what their My Little Pony character is? Mine is whatchamacallit. It's not Rainbow Dash. Rainbow Dash is too basic. Um, Forget it in general. But either way, we could probably stop getting off topic, even though it is helping chat. We'll focus on the game. Um, as we wait to see what the Finn has available here, they definitely could play some winter outfits.
Yeah, the effect period on my medications are not long enough to watch a chat like this at 9 p.m., but I'm having a good time and I'm glad you guys are here too.
Yeah, it's always fun to
Ooh.
have a little bit of interaction than us just talking to ourselves.
Oh, absolutely.
Although
One of
I
my
can
favorite
talk to
cards here.
myself.
Oh, yeah. This rare sleight of hand coming out of the fan deck. I don't see this card as often as I thought I would, to be completely honest, but I do quite like it, especially as the faction shifted version goes into Easmere and lets me play around with cards there. Sandman is going to be sleeping our Baba Yaga, and we are now threatening a double progression as Fen. But the Moth IRA is fully funded, and we have found yet another resource here.
At least that prevents the double advance at this point. I was thinking at that they would need to throw out an off you go potentially, and um, in order to stop the double advance, but instead we'll get a one for one, and we'll go into potentially this final day all even and with a lot of cards in the reserve for the Finn, as is tradition.
Yeah, Fen also threatening with their next character, this Icebound Taiga popping off and giving them an Anchored Dragon. So if Lindaway doesn't have removal, we could be struggling to get over that mountain of 5/5 stats.
They definitely could. In comparison, though, the Lindaway does have several cards in hand, so I would be curious to see if they have a way of dealing with the dragon. We do get some chat though, so it doesn't seem like it
Oh.
matters because there's a small step.
Oh, small step. You take all the thunder out of casting. All right, we're going to go back to the interview screen here. That should be pretty close to wrapping up this round. Um, and let me make sure I make a note of the Lindaway dub on that particular matchup. We are indeed on to round four. Blue, as we're here, this is the Alter Weekly Online League, Wednesday 5. So well into the season here. And we're starting to see some familiar names pop up at the top tables pretty often. As you're looking through those tables, are there any players in particular that you want to see? Do we feature Hyper K now, or do we wait for them to take the three-peat in the finals?
Um, I don't think we need to look at them quite yet. I'm actually quite interested to see what Westwill and all of the marbles are taking here on table one once they start.
Sure thing.
They I know all of the marbles tends to switch up their decks quite a lot. You can see the different varieties of things that they like to try out on their website, lyrachronicler.com. They actually got that website. It's fun to watch. They do some fun write-ups. So if you're
Nice.
interested in that, they have that. And they've also had a fun Lindaway deck that did quite well recently. So I'll be interested to see what they got. And Westwill's always a good player to watch to see what they can bring to the table, also a good Saudi player, so always respect that.
Very nice. Indeed, we're going to see Anatsadi versus Basira. So two brand new characters for tonight.
And
Less well
interestingly enough, this is the
fast.
4th yeah,
Yeah,
this is the
yeah.
4th round of Swiss, so both of these players are undefeated at this point.
Yeah, definitely looking for some particular synergies here that Trial by Frost has opened up. I am expecting Sakurabru to eat a candy bar or two over the course of this match and keep Basira from totally running away with the game with a bunch of small characters that are getting those boosts. Um, I always forget the name of our 4-drop Snow Cow who exhausts cards in reserve, but I quite like that character, and I believe that we'll be seeing that here from Basira.
Yeah, that would be our good old friend Aklut.
A Clute,
Um,
thank you.
the that we is a popular addition to the Basira decks, allowing for a good old fashioned double exhaust on most times that we see things in the reserve, which would be quite beneficial against a fellow Bravos hero. Anytime you can affect the resources of a Bravos hero, it feels good because they don't always have the the cards to come back from it. Although Trial by Frost has help with Sarengar and some other things. It's as far as factions go, it's a little bit more difficult sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. As we close out day one, we get to see the fun little combo of Tiny Jin plus Chiron to immediately gain a mana orb for the Atsadi player. We are one step closer to drawing cards and getting our counters on our hero, which will help us keep up with some of the pressure that this Haven Bravos Bastion is going to be applying alongside our Basira player.
All right. Indeed, Will. Gotta love the Haven. Uh, Still available here for the Bravos heroes, although it is not for the Axiom folks out there. A red will be a nice, helpful setup for that. And we see a candy bar allowing a gigantic Chiron to be placed.
Yeah, that's a pretty nice piece. Um, as far as content creators in the chat, I am curious for those of you who received an Eat Me Energy bar from your promotional pack for Trial by Frost. What did it taste like, and was there caramel? Please tell me there was caramel.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that French chocolate works out, but you know.
All right, we've got this Isun Boshi. Going to be able to progress here. Oh, so Basira allows target character to gain a boost. That counter went on to Boshi instead of red, which would have scored us a double progression there. No.
It might have. Curious as to see what the thought process was behind it. Both
You
of
know,
these players are quite good, so I'm sure there was a
yeah.
reason.
As I say that, I'm realizing that the stat lineup for the Eat Me Energy bar plus the Chiron was 2-2-2, and by putting both counters on the Isun
Okay.
Boshi, we just did a clean block rather than trading expeditions.
Gotcha. We do see a unique red being played here that has seasoned, and when it leaves the expedition zone, if it has two or more boosts, draw a card. And from anywhere, the next card you play this afternoon costs one less. So it's a typical red of sorts, but it has the additional little fun from anywhere effect.
Yeah, a pretty nice way to sneak in some extra value. I definitely like the uniques that I've pulled that have that writer text on them, especially when it's something that's relatively low cost. Almost feels like an after you effect of, you know, I'm still able to get a lot. What this final card would be? Is it something that Asadi is saving for these windmill slam chongos that are on the way, or as we see here, a twinkle twinkle to get some sleep, keeping that
Yeah, and
right on the
that
board for the moment.
yeah, that adds a double benefit there, not allowing for the double advance, but also preventing the draw that that red would have gotten once it left the expedition. So
Hmm.
they'll have to deal with it the following day, but at least it benefits them for the time being.
Cole in the chat says my deck can do cool things if I would draw right. I think I see why we're playing the Icebound Taiga now, because that is the epitome of magical Christmas land.
We do see the super gigantic Sakurabru play hitting the board,
Yeah, I'm a big fan.
allowing for having to send the companion side back to go. Do not send back to jail. Do not collect $200. I messed up the joke. You get the idea. Anyway, um, but they will take the hero side, and so we'll get a good old fashioned one for one. Actually, technically, wouldn't that be a negative one for one?
Hmm. I'm no mathematician, but I trust you implicitly.
Okay, let's do the math. One, two, three, four.
I guess it's a one for
Dang.
zero.
I don't know. It's at the end of the day, we can all count sometimes, and sometimes we can't. But either way, the Itzadi doing quite well here with Westwill being 2 up on the Basira. But the Basira has plenty of resources available to potentially take this one back.
Absolutely. Now, this Atsadi is still in a good spot. Plenty of cards in the deck that are going to allow us to proc this hero ability. Oh, but we see indeed my sweet, sweet snow cow is going to be setting us back a little bit by double exhausting. So neither of those cards are going to be available for this turn. And Snow Rabbit, not an exciting follow up here. Fire Rabbit, that is.
Yeah, I'm sure Westville is ideally looking to play that Sakurabaru this turn to add another counter to himself and be able to get a draw because they are running pretty low on resources. And with that play of the Fire Rabbit, they probably don't have anything crazy in hand here, as I'm sure they would have rather used the ability to boost up something else. But maybe they're just trying to disguise this next play here so it doesn't get hit by removal. And it was just a removal of their own.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still happy to see that as the Atsadi player. We lose that orb, which is a little unfortunate, but hunting that Occlute off the battlefield right away, absolutely the way to go.
Indeed, and that will allow them to get another advance. Now only 2 away from taking the game. They'll have to deal with the fact that they are lower on resources, but they will get a nice draw if they decide to play that Sakurabru on this day and see what they can get from the draw. And they are gonna mana, so they'll only be left with 2 cards in hand at the moment. Yeah,
Yeah,
do not collect go.
all right. As you mentioned, the Sakurabru coming out, getting that counter on Atsadi, and a second Haven. Definitely scary. Just
Yeah,
so
I'll be
much
interested
value.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see if we do see a helping hand come out here to potentially remove a fleeting from something like the red that maintains the seasoned or not. But only time will tell. They at this point are looking pretty good as far as the characters that they have available to them and the terrains set up as far as advancing while being in that individual mountain on the hero side of things.
A little respect in the chat for Occlute, absolutely.
Everyone loves a clue. So a lot of plays here for the Basira player. They're probably making sure on what they want to do here. We'll start us off with that unique red for 3 cost. It will get that double boost from the Havens, and once it leaves, it will get a draw. But we will see the 1 mana play there with the Fire Rabbit. It has to be getting fleeting in order to boost up that Sakurabru with its gigantic at this point.
Yeah, putting it in contention here with the red to at least block on that side at the moment. Looking like we will be trading expeditions here, more than likely. Um, Still answers in Bravos that could spell some trouble for Atsadi here, but I'm liking their position at the moment.
Yeah, definitely for what they had available to them, this does seem like the correct line to potentially put themselves adjacent and one away from taking this game and putting Saudi at a 4-0 for the tournament, which is it would actually tie the max number of wins in AWOL compared to the current number 1 at Saudi within AWOL, which is yours truly that is speaking on the mic. Yep, that's right. Can Westwill take it all, or will they be stopped? I don't know. I'd be happy to see it. Someone's got to take the throne sometime.
Absolutely. All right, this Haven bouncer coming out and getting an additional counter. Yeah, once again, putting it onto the hero side, opting to block rather than trade progressions, which, when we're down 2 spots on the tumult, makes sense. Kind of just trying to run the Satsadi out of resources. If they draw a couple clunkers, we can easily power back through with the might of our Haven Bravos bastions here and score the win that way.
Yeah, at this point, they're fine with just going to a draw. I'd have to imagine they do have two Haven Bravos Bastions out. They are a clear card advantage at this point, and the higher those counters get for Westwill on the Atsadi, the harder and harder it is to help get more cards with the draw effect. So they'll kind of be stuck with the cards that they draw at the beginning of the day from this point forward, unless they throw out something pretty big, and that one cost Keylonic cylinder will not be something big, as we do see a unique come out from the Sierra player.
Yeah, let's take a little look see at our Dracana. Anchored from anywhere and resupplies at noon. So a very Muna flavored version of the Dracana, and with a or a supportability of next character losing fleeting. Nice synergy with some of the reds that we have going on here. Oh, but a unique Sakura brew that is high enough cost to trigger the Etsadi, gaining us yet another counter and drawing a card. And let's see what that ability is here. Looks like it has something to do with killing a Dracana with fire. Your opponent's expedition facing me moves backwards from hand and from anywhere. Controlling one or more landmarks is enough to discard target character or permanent. So we were all ready to at least I was, feel like this Keylonic cylinder was the clunker that was going to let our Basira player turn the tide and double progress here. And rather than that, it turns out it's the 1-2 punch that the Sakurabru needed to get maximum value, protect itself from the Dracana, just uh, giving so many extra resources to this Basira player here. Now it's promptly snapped away by a mana eruption, but still a very cool turn and quite a strong play to get that one extra card for our Saudi player.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been a quite a good card to get to reserve as well, because with the 8 mana hand cost, they would be able to activate the hero ability one more time, as well as being able to discard another character on the board with that from anywhere effect. So it was a good time for all of the marbles on the Basira to hit it with that mana eruption, prevent them from advancing, and prevent those resources at this point. And although they won't get the resupply from the Dracana, they again prevent Westwill from moving forward and just keep this game moving along.
Yeah, Atsadi here finding a Having Sarengar. Um, just one of the best glue pieces we've seen in Bravos, and a very welcome addition with Trial by Frost. And a Mighty Jin is going to block our progression on the hero side for now, but a Dorothy sending any character to reserve from hand. Quite a few interesting shifted cards for these players. We are not fully committed to the Bravos faction here with some of the pieces we've been playing, and that flexibility is uh, just so cool about this game system. Allows us to go in a lot of different directions.
Indeed, it does. So we'll wait to see what all of the marbles can do with their remaining 3 mana. They're definitely going to need to try to stop something set up here, and they'll just go with
That'll
the
do it.
intimidation, um, which will give them the ability to advance at least once here and prevent the double advance from Westwill. But Westwill will be just one away at this point. Unfortunately for Westwill, the out of faction Dorothy Gale does not have the effect of the rare Dorothy Gale in Ysmir, where it's a from anywhere to send a target character to reserve. But it still is a 3 cost, and if they wanted to use it, they definitely could. May not be the best mana efficient play, but at least at this point, they are catching up as far as card advantage.
Yeah, just double checking. I saw the Dorothy Gale come in, and I just looked at the activity log. It didn't look like that Dorothy actually sent anything to reserve. Did I miss it?
I was thinking the same thing, but I thought I just missed it. So maybe it did, maybe it didn't, maybe it was a misclick.
All right, Westwell. After you finish your match, come let us know. Dorothy Gate
Would be a
has
pretty
officially
yeah,
begun.
yeah, it would, potentially be a pretty big misclick here, especially if they end up not taking this game, as this one's taken quite a while. We will see the Dorothy Gale played immediately, and we see that 3rd Haven Bravo Bastion come out.
A third Haven is not going to stick around after one turn, but if we decide to play it here, still pretty brutal value. We can see a lot of stuff happen off of just access to 3 additional boosts on any character we get into reserve.
So we will get the helping hand removing the fleeting from the Axiom Salvager that got the benefit of the boosts from the Haven Bravo Bastion. Yeah, I was thinking that Simon as far as removing it to the reserve, but I thought he was low enough on mana at the time to where he wouldn't have even been able to play, and he might have been able to win with a 2-0 sweep there. Maybe I'm wrong. I wasn't aware of how much mana all of the marbles had. I thought he had a potential to 2-0 there and not have to
No,
worry about another day.
I think Marbles had 3 mana there, and so looking at the Mighty Djinn just dismissed it out of hand from the hand cost, but it does indeed have a 3 cost from reserve, so that could have been a play there. So yeah, that totally makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, so he did have 3 mana? Okay, that makes sense. We do see that Twinkle Twinkle. This is probably one of my favorite cards on its Sadi. It helps you with some type of interactable in a lot of ways, whether you wanna play it on your own characters or on your opponents, and it also helps a lot with cost reduction if you ever wanna use it as such, and helping you move forward a little bit, when you're playing those really big characters and you don't have quite as much mana available to you early on in the game. So,
Yeah,
yeah. But we
super
do see that
versatile
mana
affection
eruption
card.
come up. Yeah.
Oh yeah, 2 cost mana eruption is going to take care of the Sarengar, denying yet another card draw there.
So Westwell will be at the point now, unless they have a one cost card in hand, they will not be able to play that Twinkle Twinkle again for some type of interaction, and they will use it for the support ability to throw down the Mighty Djinn of their own.
Very nice. I
And
love
that
the
will
Marbles
probably be the
extended
GG.
GG. Yeah.
Yeah. And just like I said, that cost reduction coming in clutch for Westwell, showing what its Saudi can do. And with that win, gets 4 wins in AWOL that only one other person in the entirety of Altered has been able to accomplish. I'll let you fill in the gaps on who did it.
And once again,
Either
we
way,
need Simon. We need funding for soundboards for each of the casters, please. We should prioritize this absolutely. Very important. So we will go ahead and head back to the other rounds. Also, I just want to say that I appreciate the fact that we have 2 color commentators and Starshine Simon bringing up the rear with actual useful commentary in chat. This is the only place you're going to get that kind of cutting edge commentator split. So thank you, Simon, for helping us through that last match.
yeah, we were focused a little bit too much on making jokes than actually looking at the board state, which happens sometimes, you know. You
It
get
does.
your mind gets blurry, you figure things out, you don't figure things out. Either way. Um we
Around
are
round
at the
4, we
end of
start
this
vamping.
round though. Yeah. So, what table are we going to here to watch some more games?
I see a very small number and I'm gunning for it. Let's go to table 15. 43% at this
Table
time.
15.
This is going to be with Team PKP's Psychos versus AFTU's Megon X as we roll our way into this
All
game.
right. A lot of
You
uniques.
Wow. Okay. Once again, just dropping into an absolute mess of a board state. Love to see all these sweet cards. You know what? I think Megon X was in one of our matches earlier, and they also had an exhausted Lyra Navigator unique at the time. The game ended so fast that we didn't even read it through it. But this particular one says at dusk,
Mm.
up to one target character with hand cost 3 or less other than me gains anchored. And it has the Hathor effect of from reserve, discarding to return a card. Meanwhile, our Tasia player it's a nice Spindle Harvester, which is gaining anchored when played from reserve, and at dusk, if it has one or more boosts, it's going to give anchored to another character cost 3 or less. Sun Wukong, on the other hand, if you control two or more plants other than me, target character gains two boosts, and it has the static of when target character you control gains, excuse me, when a character you control gains one or more boosts, will get anchored on some characters as well. So a lot of anchoring action going on here. Seems like these two might be able to just keep each other perpetually on the field, minus any removal from the opponent, which is quite powerful.
Yeah, with Tasia, it pretty much initiates a infinite anchor loop anytime you play a character. And so the only way to get rid of them at this point is with some type of interaction. And guess what? With that permanent on the board of Spindle Moon Bastion, it's going to cost you to do it. So honestly, a pretty good board state for the Tasia player. They are up on the tumult as well. So it's going to take everything that Finn has in order to catch up at this point, I'd have to think.
Absolutely. In a game that has such stringent deck building requirements as Altered, it is funny to see a board state where every visible card that Tasia has is a rare or a unique. Seems they've drawn most of their powerful cards, so quite good. Cole
Yeah,
lets us
so
know
we're
that our Tasia player's third and final unique is a very strong cloth dancer that does not seem to have
yeah.
been deployed yet.
And it seems like they'll be able to play both the card from reserve and card from hand at this point, and then they'll have going into the next day potentially three cards anchored that have been boosted up in some capacity. But we do see that Anansi that will get some boosts of their own with having four cards in the reserve, just not quite enough to be able to advance on that hero side with how big those two unique cards are.
Yeah, just a devastating duo here. 895 stats stuck perpetually on the board. Another
Yeah.
card that I really like from the Tasia player here is this rare Jack Frost. Just a very interesting card for Muna to have access to an exhaust effect from anywhere. Um, Pretty much we were looking at slim pickings for any sort of sabotage effect and beyond the gates, and now you have this perfectly respectable body on this character. Doesn't really jive with many of the plant synergies that you can get in this uh, um, lost my name, the faction. But yeah, just being able to snipe certain cards on pivotal turns for a low cost is quite effective.
Yeah, not quite enough mana for the Tasia player to be able to anchor that rare aloe vera and still be able to play that Ogun. So they choose not to at this point, opting to be able to still have that option to play the Ogun at the end of the day, which they very well may do. And the Finn has to know this and will still have to throw something out. Sandman's not a bad character to throw out there and opting to sleep their own aloe vera rather than targeting one of the anchored characters of the Tasia.
Yeah, I mean, as the Fen there, I'm wanting to have a Tanuki in hand to be able to snap off this Ogun before it puts counters everywhere and allows my Sun Wukong to anchor my board once again. Just a nasty synergy here.
Yeah, and with that Ogun anchoring pretty much everything at this point, and with that Sandman only actually being able to target their own characters, because as I mentioned earlier, the Spindle Munabashin would prevent that targeting to happen without paying a little bit extra for tough. We're gonna be seeing a pretty healthy board state for Psychos playing the Tasia and pretty much just anchoring everything on their board, minus oh, no, now they're deciding to anchor the Jack Frost as well. So, I was curious to see if they were gonna let the Jack Frost go to reserve so they could potentially play that for an exhaust on the following day, but it seems like they're just gonna be happy with anchoring everything and having the biggest board state, with 6 characters going into what looks like maybe the final day.
Yep, hard to be mad about getting to anchor your entire board. This Spindlemana Bastion is going to provide one additional boost at the start of the turn, depending on where we decide to place that counter and whether we need the extra mana crystal, which I would be surprised if we went for that. But yeah, I mean, this Fen has their work cut out for them, starting first and foremost with figuring out which of their 4 cards to get rid of from their reserve. Looks like we've made those selections. The survivors are this Hatter, which can give anchored and also just has respectable stats, and then our Nyla, which will allow us to swap out a card from our hand. Ooh, and we come across a small step giant leap, which is not lethal at this time, as well as this unique Haven Saringar. When it leaves the expedition, if it was fleeting, discard a permanent. Okay, pretty sweet. And then at dusk, if your reserve is empty, up to one target character can gain anchored. So I, I don't know how often you're seeing an empty reserve from Fen, to be completely honest, but still seems quite good. All right, Fen is going to go ahead and play the small step giant leap to give the gentleman's win to our Tasia player. Congratulations to Psychos there for assembling an unbeatable board state and good sportsmanship on the side of Megan. All
Yeah, well,
right.
I bet everyone was thinking that Tasia couldn't play Small Step Giant Leap to take an adjacent board state. Well, look who's stupid now. Collect go at $200. Either way, let's get into some more games here for round 4 still? Round 5?
Yep, we're still in round 4. There's a single match going on, so we'll head to table 16. And if precedent is correct, which it is, the game has already ended. Round 5 is heading up now, so players be ready to head to your tables and let us know, Blue, where we're headed for this next round.
So we are currently down to 4 undefeated players, so we may as well take a look at them at this moment. We did watch Will this last game, so let's take a look at table 2 with the Keelan guy and Popeye.
Table 2, Keelan Guy and Popeye. We are headed in. And has Keelan Guy revealed what they're up to today?
I don't know if they did, and I also don't know if he's going to cooking classes as much this season. I've only seen him on the Afanis, but maybe he's bringing a new recipe in for this week of AWOL. Maybe not. I'm not quite sure. But we will see here shortly. It is a team battle of sorts. We have Altered Aces with Popeye and AQZ, also known as the Altered Quarantine Zone for the Keylon guy, who is also one of our co-casters that was doing some casting on Monday for the European timing of AWOL.
Yeah, I was working with Keelan Guy 2 Wednesdays ago. Definitely an excellent commentator, and we are very thankful for all of the work that he's put in, tracking down the different teams and paying attention to, um, you know, what sort of rivalries and stuff are popping up now. Keelan Guy is indeed on the Afanis, and as you mentioned, I have to give a brief anecdote. You mentioned cooking for the Keelan Guy with all of these cool brews. I heard recently from my mom who tuned into the stream 2 weeks ago and asked why I was casting from the pantry based on how messy my shelves are. So we might need a rebrand to the Nerd Pantry at some point. We'll see. As it stands,
There
we
you go.
see a Category and Mage Dancer coming out and followed up by a magical training. So quick little boost action there. And our or ooh, a common Ortis Trooper. Not something you see from Sigismar every day. The stats on the rare are just so powerful.
It is, but you actually have been seeing the occasional conversion over to the 111 common Ordis Trooper for some of the Sigismar lists, as they opt for some other rare cards, as such as throwing as many of those Ordis attorneys in there, even the rare out of faction Baba Yaga, the rare Grand Endeavor. They kind of build up, and the purpose a lot of the times that you're seeing for that common Ordis Trooper is just to act as a slow play of sorts, and it's still efficient for the cost at 111. A lot of other one cost cards usually are missing a stat in some capacity, so it's still not bad. Not as good, obviously, but it does the job, and I can see why if you're converting some stuff from rare to common, you would choose that Ordis Trooper.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Um, Also, as we see this snipe of our rare Ortis Attorney, Aphanis is going to say a no sir to our opponent getting yet another card draw off of that effect. And
I think you
with
need to
that,
switch scenes.
oh no, I've done it again. Thank you, Simon. All right, yet another magical training coming in.
Yeah, we do have a unique Kokoba that allows a draw for a card. It's been interesting to see the Sigismar players adding unique specifically that just do draw available to them for around that 3 cost in general. They've kinda activated some way of replacing those Ozmas that are currently suspended. You saw a few of them in recent tournaments in France, where I think if you wanna watch a video that I may have just posted on my channel, Blue Oak TV, where the winner of the entire tournament was running this monolith rune scribe that they got in every single game of the semifinals for a turn one play. That's essentially just a Baba Yaga, but you can play it from anywhere and it draws a card. So it
Wow.
really helps with that advantage, and it also had decent stats. So good good little setup there for just Sigismars in general, as we see a foundry mechanic unique that looks to basically be those token factories that you mentioned before.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful. All right, so we are, Keelan Guy is not too happy with us casting this game, but the streamer curse doesn't seem too bad with double tooth fairies able to snipe key cards that are gonna keep the cards flowing for the Sigismar here. Yet another unique from our Sigismar player to the Foundry mechanic. Ooh, a lot of text on this one. Looks like we are making some tokens, and if we have tokens, we're making more tokens.
Yeah, it's a token factory indeed. And Keelan guy will have to get just cull the rest, having very many cards as a Ysmir hero, and currently down 2 spots on the tumult to the Sigismar player. We may in fact be cursing them a little bit, especially if this Sigismar is running into a 6 mana turn and was looking at playing a Grand Endeavor, but it doesn't look to be the case. So at least he doesn't have to worry about that, and he'll have some time before we put the inevitable clock of doom on him when it comes to a grand endeavor.
Yeah, I like the dual flexibility of this Foundry mechanic, allowing us to accelerate into a Grand Endeavor with the support ability when we need it, but also just being, another example of a good army in a can card. Yeah, here comes a Conjuring Seal.
There's
Um,
still 2 mana left for both heroes, and 2 mana is a lot with either of them as far as cards that can be played. The question is, what will they play and what they do have available? And the Sigismar's just happy to throw out another attorney telling the Keelan guy, if you want to win on that side, you're going to have to give me 2 more cards, pretty much. And
yeah,
eh, yeah,
as Keelan got here, like you could even look at playing the Moth to a Flame and matching out stats Uh, it's still not even good enough though, unfortunately, because they'd be able to progress on Forest there. So yeah, just a rock and a hard place for Keelan guy right now.
Yep, they will be 4 spots down now at this point, so it would be quite the comeback if they were able to pull themselves back from the brink of defeat at this point, and it does give the Sigismar player in Altered Aces Popeye some latitude to play a permanent if they did have one available, whether that is the Monolith Ortis Bastion or a Grand Endeavor, and realistically give up 2 advances for the exchange of setting up for the following turns and potentially closing out the game.
Yeah, if I was a stronger caster, I would be much better at looking up these legacy lists that some of the altered aces have gone for because each player is typically playing some variation of the same deck, whatever their fits their play style. I'm curious if Popeye has shown a preference towards the Bastion or the Grand Endeavor in previous rounds.
And honestly, it could have changed since that time.
Oh, absolutely.
We've seen success from both types of permanents. We've had Cladius from Altered Aces do quite well with the Monolith Ortis Bastion setup. And then we also have had the recent winner of the tournament in France that I may have done a video on if I want to promote it one more time today, Blue Oak TV. The Exalts that was running 2 Grand Endeavors. So, honestly, merit to both sides, like you had mentioned, and it's just a matter of what is your preference realistically? And honestly, you could probably try running both. I wouldn't suggest it. You'd probably want to go with one or the other, but definitely a possibility. And either way, bit of a hole for the Keelan guy to dig out of, even if he doesn't end up seeing either permanent. Being this far down into the game does not always feel that great.
Yeah, getting the block on the Monolith Legate side, if I mean, there's still plenty of mana to go here, but if that's the case, looks like we'll most likely get this Mage Dancer sniped to this turn if we decide to continue pushing on the companion side. So the rock and a hard place continues.
Indeed, it does. Only 2 mana left here, 3 mana left for the Sigismar. A lot of options that you can make with the 3 mana, and the Sandman is definitely a good one to hit. It will allow them to sleep one character here, and those 3 stats in Mountain on the hero side are definitely a good setup here to potentially double advance. And I'm not sure what Keelan guy could have here that would prevent that, other than maybe a beauty sleep or an off you go.
Yeah, the number of options available to Ymir players definitely reduces as we continue to run down on mana throughout the turn. Not to say Afanis doesn't run plenty of answers in this situation, but yeah, we're getting down to it.
Indeed, we are again, but thank you for everyone that has joined us thus far. This is round 5, correct? And we are watching 2 of the top 4 players that are currently undefeated. The other side, we have actually a Sadi versus a Tasia being played. So it'll be interesting to see who ends up being able to take that one and going to the 6th round and being able to play one of these 2 heroes that are kind of leading the meta at this point.
Yeah, a good variety of heroes that we've seen tonight too, which has been nice on coverage. Like whatever matches we decide to run into on any given day, there's 74 players here. We're not going to see everybody, but among the folks that we have seen and at the top tables, we are seeing some variety.
A lot of Kesha early on is what we were able to see as well. Obviously, not seeing them at the top table at the moment, but still cool to see them being played in different varieties than what we would typically see Runefolk do and force everyone to watch a 50-minute game.
You got to savor those games, Blue. It's okay to be an Akesha
Well, that's
player.
fine.
You just got to play
No, I
fast.
mean, I'm a big fan of Akesha either way. I just wanted to take that snipe at Runefolk, especially if he's asleep right now.
Oh, you
Either
got
way,
to.
um, yeah, we do see the one for one there. Still not looking too great for the Keelan guy, although they do have that Mage Dancer out. The question is can they stop Popeye here from taking a single region into meeting up with the hero and the companion? They will just stack on one side. The question is, what can they do, if anything? So much stats. What? Oh, we do see a unique spindle harvester at least.
Zoom in. From anywhere, gaining anchored. And at dusk, if I have one or more boosts, you can return a spell from reserve to hand. Yeah, that's good eating right there.
Yep, it is one of those typical spindle harvesters. It is 2 costs, and that's probably because it has that I gain anchored from anywhere, but it's still not a bad one. Unfortunate, though, that it does not have more stats to help prevent the advance on the hero side, as we see a Baba Yaga pop up, allowing for a draw, and we'll see what else can come from it. I'm sure the Keelan guy would like another off you go in hand at this point to kind of take care of any character that might interfere with them preventing the Sigismar from advancing this turn. But currently, they have the one in reserve that they can't play anymore and one card in hand, so anything is possible.
Siggy in the tank just a little bit here, deciding what we're going to do with these precious last two resources. And as it stands, we're going for a teamwork training, a little bit of remove here. Going to push off this Katagirian Mage Dancer, and with the stats available, it seems unlikely that we'll be able to mount a victory over this Baba Yaga. And in fact, Keelan Guy extends the GG in chat. And we will go ahead and zoom on back out to our next match. Well done to both players, and congrats to Popeye for maintaining undefeated. Keelan Guy, sorry we ruined your streak by putting you on camera.
Yeah. Caster Curse successfully completed. Ha ha ha. And it does look like in the other top game that I have here on the other screen that Westwill is just one advance away from taking the game while being ahead. So we may
Excellent.
be seeing in it Saudi in the finals of the AWOL tournament here for the weekly number 5.
And we do see that unique Sakurabru from the previous match that Westwell was on coverage. And here they go, right into undefeated status. Congrats to Westwell.
Bravo. Someone finally dethroned me. I'm glad that it was Westwill. And honestly, I hope he goes all the way taking it down, going 6-0, being the first at Saudi to do so. Holy moly, would that be crazy? Who said it Saudi wasn't meta? Everyone playing Kojo and Basira, get off of those heroes. Pull up at Saudi.
I've got a local who's real big into it, Saudi, and when he learned about Altered, went on a bit of an eBay binge, grabbing all of the sweet uniques that could be played in a Saudi deck. And at the time, uh, didn't think that was going to amount to anything, and now here we are.
Indeed, and the players that Westwill beat along the way are no slouches either, so it
Mhm.
definitely wasn't an easy route, and we have over 70 players here for this tournament. So bravo as we are finishing up the 5th round here. Do you have another game we're taking a look at?
I do. I'm interested to see why the progress bar at table 15 is only at 29%. Something tells me that we might have a Fen at this table, but we will determine that in a moment. Haha, it is a Fen. Fen versus Atsadi here. Fen fully charged up with a very busy reserve, and currently nothing on board as we check for the first action from our Faunus player.
Yep, we do see the Nyala in the fun alternate art that you can get from the OP season 2 packs. Great card that I've seen work quite well in Finn lately, being able to exhausted resupply and then just picking up a card from your reserve that you may have wanted in your hand and putting a card that you may have not wanted in your hand into the reserve because you don't typically get to choose when you're Finn. But Nyala helps fix that up a little bit.
Yeah, gone are the days where we're just clinging to Hathor to get some of those cards that maybe we want to play from hand that get sent into reserve with our resupply effects or our Fen hero power. Plenty of versatility allowed by this character, and reasonable stats as well. Not too mad to see 330 in Lyra at this level. One card that I
Indeed, and
do like to see here is this common Will o' the Wisp, looking exclusively for moving forward due to water as the character ability.
yeah, and it's one of those cards that I was mentioning before that ideally you don't want to play from hand, and if you can swap it out with something like Nyala or Sleight of Hand and put it in your reserve, you're gonna want to do that, whether you're playing it from reserve or you're just using that support ability, which is probably one of the most beneficial abilities for Finn, and allowing the next card you play to cost one less, especially when it gets resupplied.
Yeah, lots of new cards from Trial by Frost in this Fen deck. Ooh, and actually, if we're looking at the discard here while we're waiting for Aphanis to make their move, Magpang Hoarder rare. You have two or more cards in reserve. I gain two boosts and fleeting. Nice little stat stick from anywhere.
Indeed, and interestingly enough, I was going to mention it's in fact the Faunus player that is running low or negative time at this point, and not the Finn player taking time to make their decisions.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if that's going to come into be a factor later on, especially with how slow this game is progressing along the tumult, and if we may see BGA decide who's going to win if we run into time here in the next 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, Will, apologies in chat. I didn't realize that you were the player at this current table. But yeah, no, it does indeed look like your opponent may have disconnected here. So um, we will just potentially wait for that one, and we'll go ahead and zoom back out to another game. All right. We are going to head to table 18.
Sounds like a plan as we get away from that.
Yeah,
I was
alphabet.
wondering why it was why nothing was being played. I just thought they were just taking a long time to really decide, you know? It's really
I
thinking
don't
of
want
their
to I don't want anybody to think that I'm hating on Fen here. I've just happened to notice that throughout the course of this event, anytime we've seen somebody with an unusually low progress bar on the board game arena, it has been a Fen matchup. So that was not a call out for Fen players, more so for BGA calculating Fen matchups in an unusual way. As we head down to the table, see a rare unique Lyra out, which has an at dusk looking for base stats of 0 among characters we control to draw cards, and gives a character fleeting from anywhere. Um, as far as the rest of the board goes, faction shifted withered trees for some cool exhausted resupply shenanigans out of this Sierra here. Sierra, not content to make brass bugs, has decided to make organic bugs too, and will be filling up this board with tokens anytime that they have a good setup.
Yeah, and slight little aside here, Alphabet Souped is a top tier name. I'm glad we were able to pull that up on screen here.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
right up there with, Showing Cracker 8, that was one of the big ones way back when, and, even Zarkasm, I like that one too.
Sarcasm is an excellent one. There was someone in chat earlier who's the top tables right now. Their name escapes me because it's round four and round five, and my brain is soup. But we will see them on the tournament report here shortly.
Really cool to see the Sierra running 2 withered trees and using the usual mechanical trainings. This time in the rare version, haven't seen those used quite as much, but I have seen a lot of those Kelonic heaters that you see in the discard in the rare that allow you to trigger the Sierra ability for one cost from reserve. You don't get the exhausted resupply, but you're almost okay with it for just paying one for a brass bug.
Yeah, the synergies here are excellent, and that Keylonic heater at the current stats, a free 2/2 off of a single mana, you gotta love it. Let's go ahead and do a quick look at what other kind of pieces are going on in here. Frozen Reprocessor, also a rare here, so two excellent permanents that are going to provide a lot of value across the course of a game in uh, the Withered Tree and that Reprocessor. You're not sad to see either of those options as the Sierra player.
Yeah, I mean, it's another reason to use that mechanical training. You always got to find a way to activate some of your permanents, and if you're going to exhaust something and produce a moth, then you're going to do it, right? And then we'll get two moths on the board.
Moth IRA aggressively funded this turn.
Indeed.
All right, so with a double um, exhaustion here, we have sniped two of the big bodies and also removed some of the options that Nyala might give our Fen player here. Seeing how they proceed, it looks like we're just going to fire off that acapella training as a mini after you. Fleeting on a token's not going to do too much, but it will give us more time to run this Sierra out of their options and hopefully allow us to strategize the best way to move forward.
Yeah, we see an equal back and forth there with just the one cost frozen delivery to match them a little bit, and they run into another avalanche that would be it's going to be pretty nice in removing any characters that the Finn might play. So we'll see if that ends up mattering here, or if Finn has anything else left to play from hand, or if they're just going to throw out that Twinkle Twinkle one more time to see if the Sierra actually has any characters left to play.
Yeah, I mean, with Sierra at match point here, it's a little scary as the Fen player. So just kind of working through the options they have. Um, oh, a pass.
They don't have
So
it.
we might,
Yeah.
yeah, we might be looking at, yeah, there we go. With a character in the hero expedition, we are looking at a match point from both players on this following turn. Now, granted, with double slept moths and the opportunity to get some sort of exhaustion to trigger those trees again, it's an uphill battle at the moment for Fen, but certainly not impossible to put up a fight here.
And as Lyra, we can always be looking at a rare out of faction small step giant leap hitting the board. And what do you know? What do you know? That does
Shot
not feel good
fully
as the
called.
Sierra player. Yeah.
Oh my
Oh,
goodness,
he
but we do see
exhausted.
this exhausted.
Does he have a second one in hand? And is it not going to matter? So we will see a lot of moth hitting the board at this point. The question does is this Finn able to deal with the moth, or are they having a second small step giant leap from hand?
It's got to be the second small set. There we go.
There you go.
No amount of bugs can save you now. So sorry, Sierra. Well played by both players. Yeah, that was a exciting way to end the game there. Very cool. We are going to head back and see if we have any more matches to watch before the final showdown of Siggy versus Etsadi at the undefeated table. For those of you just joining, thanks for coming in and watching the gameplay. This is the Altered Weekly Online League, Season 2, Wednesday Weekly number 5. Plenty more of these to go, so if you are not part of the Discord already, do be sure to join that. And also, go ahead and subscribe to the channel right now on YouTube so that you can get alerts each Monday and Wednesday when these events go live. Monday events are queued for the European time zone, and the Wednesday events are typically more friendly to the American time zones. Um, Blue, as
Yep.
we are headed into this final matchup, um, what do you think will be the outcome here? Do you have any called shots?
Yeah, I'll go into that. Elio and Arthur. I was kind of confused about that in the last play as well, but I think it may have just been a potential idea to bait the Sierra based on what they had in hand and they knew that they could play out. potentially to the small step win on the following day, but who knows? It's hard to tell without being able to see full hands and getting ideas from the players. But yeah, getting into the finals, you want to root for the Itzadi, and I am going to be rooting for the Itzadi. This will be an entirely biased final round here in the sixth round of the Swiss, but it's hard to beat Sigismar now. It really is. Even with such a finely tuned deck, that yeah, Westwood will follow with their own one cost, kind of forcing Popeye to choose a side that they want to build up on at this point, and not allowing for any interaction with the two cost removal that a lot of Sigismar have. So potentially looking at a one for one in this scenario if Westwell's able to throw any character out.
Action on Westwill finds the Haven Sarengar, an excellent hit, and also going to get a counter here. Yes. No, we're just going to fast action to gain the 2 Keylon counters. All right, so a progression apiece, and we roll on into day two. Atsadi has the access to the card draw off the Haven Sarengar here if it makes it onto the board. See what they decide to move forward with.
Yep, they are open to play on that hero side as they do have a forest terrain available to them to benefit from that Haven Sarengar. Have to believe that they may want to get that out before the Sigismar does have the option to sabotage, which we know Sigismar does tend to have, whether that be through Order Spy or the delayed sabotage of the Legat. But we do not know what Westville has in hand, so they may have another spicy take that they can be doing instead.
Yeah, I mean, I loved the efficiency last time we saw turn one of the Tiny Jin into Cerdunos for instant ramp. So, lots of nice little synergies here. All the cards contributing together to move us towards those bombastic late game plays that you expect from Itzadi, but in a much more cohesive way than maybe we were looking at in just the Beyond the Gates meta. Plenty of cards from Trial by Frost coming in to help boost this hero in the current meta.
Yeah, interestingly enough, Popeye's taken a good amount of time here on the second day to decide their mana. They may be looking at what they want to move forward with here on this next day. They do have a mechanic in the reserve, so we may be looking at an early monolith play if they are running it in their hand in their deck. Um, but we also may be looking at something else that they're trying to build their mana curve around. Either way, we do start with that Saringer early on, as we mentioned, and the mechanic will come from the reserve, so it will not be used for its support ability.
Yeah, potentially happy to um, exchange expeditions here on the hero side. Both players moving forward with the current spread of terrains. But plenty
And
more
Westville
resources.
Yeah, Westwell making the smart play there too, just statting up their Chiron in order to prevent Sigismar from splitting up here a little bit. Happy to take the one for one, knowing that Sigismar does like running things like Baba Yaga that can definitely get over the top of a lonely statted Chiron, and just making the Sigismar add another character to the hero side if they wanted to block that Saringer.
Absolutely. One moment here, Blue. It seems that we may have had a stream snag.
It's live for me.
Right, folks, if you're still having issues seeing the stream, please let us know.
Yeah, still showing live on my other window here, but maybe it's not for
Okay.
others. Not sure.
I think I had like an OBS clip there for a moment. Well, the show must go on, so hopefully everybody's still seeing it as we see Atsadi deploy an Eat Me Energy bar. on their 5 mana turn. Might be a moment before we get the double dip from some Sakurabrus starting to push back against the consistent progressions of our Sigmar player.
Yeah, and not just the Sakurabru either. We've seen Westwill definitely show themselves to have the ability to just throw that Chiron down next to the Eat Me energy bars and take the gigantic when they can. And so we may be looking at that now as we see the Sandman actually come out for the Sigismar purely for the stats. And knowing that that Chiron could be played and not wanting to sleep one of the characters in their hero side as that would have given up an advance.
Good little blocking there from the Sandman. All right, so we are currently tied on the tumult, and yeah, Atsadi definitely hanging in there right now.
Definitely, I mean, you never are too upset if you can keep the Eat Me energy bars out on the board. Lets you play with some utility as far as when you can play on it and when your opponent has to get ready to block it. Always a good idea if you can get that out early to take advantage of it. And realistically, although Westwell hasn't hit the mono ramp that I think that they would have liked to hit at this point, still even on the tumult. And when you're playing Sigismar, who typically likes to move fast on occasion, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, absolutely. When you start to uh, certain matchups, you just feel like, oh, I'm supposed to take this particular role, and then as you're watching that kind of slip away and having to adapt on the fly, it can be a little nerve wracking sometimes. Oh, a Haven Bouncer here is going to snipe off this Sandman. And we see the first Grand Endeavor deployed by our Sigismar player.
Yeah, an interesting play here. I know typically you do want to play it on curve, but this will put them down as far as giving up a double advance here, and they will only have two cards in hand. I'd be curious to know if their play changed based off of that sabotage or not, or if they were always going to play it right away. It will put that ever present clock for the Itzadi to advance in time to not get hit by that Grand Endeavor play at the end of the day. But we also may be looking into what I had mentioned in previous games of having a nice two cost mana eruption to be able to knock out that Grand Endeavor when available. I'm not sure if Westwill is in fact running it in their deck list, but it's probably the most efficient removal for Grand Endeavor that you can play with any type of deck list.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm racking my brain if we had seen one in the previous matchup. Um, I do not recall. I think the last time I saw a an eruption from Bravo's player was when they were the top player, and Westwell has been the bottom player both times.
Yeah. Wouldn't be surprised to see it, or at least some variation of Mana Eruption, whether it's the common or the rare. Ideally, if you can run the rare with the available rare slots that you have, you will. But if you can't, I understand why you wouldn't. Three costs for Mana Eruption is also not too bad. It would cost five in this case if they did try to hit the Grand Endeavor. But we'll have to wait and see if that even factors in as they decide whether or not they are going to throw out the candy bar. And sure enough, they do.
Right. Candy bar prep in place. No match for the world's most powerful frog bureaucrat. The game is young.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, a decent spot to be in as Westwill.
Hmm.
You're forcing Sigismar to stack on one side. They only have one card in hand. Technically, you can go one for now, but you always have to be aware of that Grand Endeavor giving another advance to the Sigismar, even with you having the lead on the Tumult at this point. If you do go one for one, you will be even when it comes to the next day. But we'll see what they're able to pull out here with that boost coming from the Kelon cylinder.
Yeah, we might just get plenty of efficiency here from replaying this Haven Bouncer, which will get its own boost plus another. Or we might be seeing a new card from hand, and we do. Dorothy Gale is going to send a card to reserve, more than likely.
Question is, what are they going to target? Either card can be played out again,
Hmm.
unless they do hit the token, which I'm not sure why they would at this point, but it definitely is an option.
Would be a piece they
We
can't
will.
pay it back, but yeah, moving for the Ordis Attorney here. Um, yeah, interesting question for Sigismar how they want to proceed.
Yeah, at this point, it's a decision on what side they would like to advance on. Westwill will be down. Um, on the hero side. So if they throw out the attorney on the other side just to get the draw, it wouldn't be ideal. But they do opt to take the advance over the draw, despite being pretty low on resources, and just taking advantage of that Grand Endeavor still being in play and being able to go even once we get noon onto the following day.
Yeah, with that trade, we are mostly neck and neck here. But notably, Atsadi has not seemed to have found any of their Haymaker cards, or at least not deployed them yet. So, with that energy bar in place, we might be looking at Asaka Rabru coming down this turn and helping to relieve some of that Grand Endeavor pressure.
Yeah, I don't remember if their unique allowed them to target permanents as well, or if it was just characters, but I'm pretty sure it's just characters. Either way, they are in the position to utilize that Sakurabru and kind of turn back the clock a little bit
Hmm.
as far as that grand endeavor and the pressure that it's putting on him. I think it's one of the few cards available in the current meta that can stop the grand endeavor without actually removing it at this point. But with that bouncer play, it does not look like that is going to be the case at the moment.
Yeah, might still be digging for the last couple of cards we need to really unlock Atsadi here. I was just thinking a little bit earlier, we've gotten a nice mix of all the different cards in the Atsadi strategy so far. Got some card draw, some ramp, some pumping, and then of course the sabotage from Haven Bouncer. But yeah, without these haymakers on the top end, Grand Endeavor gets a lot scarier. And even though we can typically keep up with just nickel and dime progressions, we do want some of this late game power and have not seemed to be able to find it yet.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he has here. That Dorothy Gale will help, but at this point, he does need to stop Sigismar from advancing at all. He doesn't need to win right now, but he cannot allow the Sigismar to advance. And with that Dorothy Gale play, he has very limited amount of options at one cost. He could definitely have a Fire Rabbit available, but with that unique coming right back out and him passing, it looks like we may be seeing the end of the Itzadi play, assuming that the Sigismar can throw enough stats out, and they should be able to get over at least on the hero side with that Frog Prince, and that'll likely be a GG.
Yep, and indeed, Westwill is extending the GG in chat as we speak. We will let this match go to its natural conclusion with the Grand Endeavor activation at noon. But yeah, an incredible run for our Saudi player. Um, had card draw come up differently, there was no question that throughout their night they've played against some powerful opponents, and they could absolutely hang with the big ones here.
Get a lot more GGs thrown in the chat by everyone crowded around to watch the game. It's almost like we're at a LAN setting with everyone watching the championship, crowded around the final table, seeing who can take the game. But yeah, GG to both players. Congrats to Popeye to be the first EU player to take the Wednesday AWOL here in season two. And honestly, congrats to Westwill for taking it Saudi this far and realistically making it as close as you could there in that final game. Had you hit the right amount of cards like you mentioned as far as the draw, it could have gone another way. But this time it does go the Sigismar's way, and that just speaks to the consistency of the hero and the deck list that people can put together.
Yeah, absolutely. Sigismar continues to be a house, and we just see that deck regularly at the top tables across all of the different tournaments that have been going on recently. If you want to keep up with some of the recent tournament results and are not aware, 39cards.com is a community resource that is very helpful for letting you see the makeup of decks and also what sort of cool uniques might be performing well at any given time. I definitely recommend checking out that website if you are interested in getting more in touch with some competitive decks. As it stands, we're going to go ahead and move to table 3 here. Oh, and we will get a little bit of extra gameplay before closing out the night.
Sounds like a plan.
Tasia is on match point with an absolute army of plant characters, but Siggy is doing their best to keep up. The single resource, it looks like that will not be the case here. So congrats to our Tasia player, AA Tunes. Altered
Yeah,
Aces
really
is
cool to see
sweeping.
him is still live or not, or if we lost everything, or if I lost my connection. Let me know in chat if you can still see everything. It looks like my view is still working out. We did lose Jalix, and it looks like he may be back. I can hear him. Maybe, maybe not. Either way, appreciate everyone that has joined this Wednesday altered weekly online league event. It's been quite the event being able to see West will go all the way to the finals, and we see our first French slash European victor for this Wednesday event, opposed to the Mondays where they've been dominating all of the time anyway. If you do have anything else left in the chat, feel free to ask it, and we may have Jalix back. Are you back?
I think I'm back. The storms can't hold me down. Sorry
Okay.
for the disconnect there, folks. But yeah, congratulations once again to Popeye. A lot of firsts tonight, and also a nice switch up on coverage from some of the decks that we've been seeing. Please continue to innovate. I want to see a night where we queue into 5 ghoul rings. I want to see a lot of presence from Fen. I want to see it all. Please keep coming back and playing in these events. Let's top this 74 player event next Wednesday, and I'll be looking forward to seeing you guys there.
Indeed, indeed. Thanks again for everyone that joined. Feel free to follow us on our respective social medias. They've been popping up occasionally below us for our names. I am at Blue Oak TV on most everything, specifically YouTube. You can always subscribe there. New videos out every Wednesday. Jalix, what do you got?
I am at the Tabletop Tinker on YouTube and Twitch. Slightly delayed in my content series by the beta for Altered being delayed a little bit, but as soon as that is out, be sure to send your friends and family my way. I will be happy to walk them through getting started on Board Game Arena and getting their collection going.
All right, all right. Well, I think that's about it. I'm not sure how delayed we are at this point with the chat, but if anyone else has anything else to say on chat, we'd be fine responding. But if not, we're gonna head to bed slash dinner, depending on what time zone you're in.
I strongly suspect that my little Ordis recruit is going to need some rations here in about 30 minutes, so I will be tending to him.
Sounds good. All right, then. I'm good to go then if you are.
Sounds good. Have a good night, everybody. See you on Monday.
Love you too, Keelan.
Bye bye. Oof. Talk about 11th